Chapter 1232. Qiu Xingyi, the name that had been first on the Heaven Martial Roll for many years. When these three words rang out, the entire Xingqing Peak erupted into an unprecedented uproar. Everyone's gazes were gathered on a young figure with an extraordinary bearing on the star-raising peak viewing platform. Even senior brother Qiu is here, Wu Yin murmured in surprise. Where is he? I haven't seen him before. Zhao Qingkai clapped his hands excitedly. However, there was no need for Wu Yin to point out. When everyone looked over, they had already guessed who Qiu Xingyi was. In the crowd, he was like a moon surrounded by stars. Even though he was not standing close to the front, his innate, dignified demeanor caused the surrounding martial ancestor disciples to be reduced to mere foils, making them appear dim and lightless. Chu Hin also curiously sized up the proud son of heaven who had gathered thousands of glory on his body. Qiu Xingyi had a tall, slender, and handsome figure. He wore a white robe, and his temperament was gentle, giving off a feeling of gentleness. He was like the second Dongxian peak master, Aoyu Manor. However, in comparison, Qiu Xingyi's temperament was even more outstanding. Senior brother Qiu, we finally meet. First on the Heaven Martial Roll, you really live up to your name. He's so handsome. Senior brother Qiu should really participate in the sect battle. The atmosphere was getting louder and louder. Other than Wang Li, Pei Yi, and Qi Qianying, there seemed to be no other sect genius who could be mentioned in the same breath as Qiu Xingyi. The four of them were like the bright moon among the thousands of stars, shining brightly. As a result, the first disciples of the four peak academies were all present. However, as the first disciple of the Beichan Peak Academy, Wu Yin seemed to be especially embarrassed at the moment. No one noticed his presence at all. Even if there was, it was a deliberate mocking gaze. What a pity. It's rare that the top four of the Heaven Martial Roll are all here. That's right. If only senior brother Qiu wasn't absent. No matter what, senior brother Qiu has my support. First on the Heaven Martial Roll is enough to prove everything. More and more people broke out into cheers. Hee, he's stirring up trouble again. Wang Li shook her head and chuckled. She crossed one arm in front of her and stroked her chin with the other. On the other hand, there was a ball of restless flames slowly rising in Pei Ye's eyes, and a trace of invisible high fighting spirit was revealed between his brows. As for Qi Qianying, she appeared especially calm. It was as if to her, whether Qiu Xingyi stole the limelight or not had nothing to do with her. Qiu Xingyi only smiled politely at the passionate atmosphere. Even though he had stolen the limelight, he still stood below the stage in his own way to show that he was not the main character of the day. TSK, as expected of the top ranker on the Heaven Martial rankings. Even as a spectator, he's so eye-catching. Zhao Qingkai shook his head and sighed. Of course, senior brother Qiu's popularity is unparalleled. Let's see if the other two have the chance to surpass him. As Wu Yin spoke, she glanced at Wang Li and Pei Yi. In his opinion, only these two had any hope of competing with Qiu Xingyi. As for the others, it was practically impossible. As for Qi Qianying, she was less competitive and did not like to fight for the top spot on the leaderboard. As time passed, the atmosphere in the arena gradually calmed down. The martial sect's upper echelon elders and the 8 Peak Academy masters also sat on the viewing platform on Xingqing Peak. Due to the impact of yesterday's events, it could be seen that Beichan Peak Master Yuan Shang's expression was not good. His face was stern and slightly cold. Yao, who stood beside Chu Hin, sighed a little desolately. Looks like Master's anger has not subsided at all. At this moment, Elder Liu, who had hurriedly ascended the viewing platform on Xingqing Peak, suddenly hurriedly led 2 disciples to carry a spacious stone chair and placed it on the highest level of the platform. The hearts of everyone present were startled. What's going on? That seat is actually higher than the 4 Peak Master seats? Could it be? Everyone's heart faintly trembled. In the entire martial sect, there was only one person who could sit above the 4 Peak Masters. Whoosh! It was also at this moment that a formless righteous aura suddenly rose between heaven and earth. Immediately afterward, a divine rainbow descended from the sky and an unshakable aura immediately enveloped the entire area around the Ling Xiao fighting platform. The space within 1,000 miles was faintly trembling uneasily. Everyone's heartstrings were tight, and their hearts were hanging in their throats. Screech, in the ninth heaven, a majestic eagle let out a long cry that resounded through the void. Buzz, the space trembled violently. Wherever the divine rainbow went, a slender figure like a king appeared in front of everyone's eyes. In an instant, all the senior elders got up, and the 8 Peak Academy masters all left their seats. The disciples of the 4 Peak Academies all bowed and lowered their heads. Welcome, Lord Sovereign. Sovereign, Dongfang Hengji, the supreme ruler of martial sect. He was in existence above the 8 masters of the Peak Academies. Although his arrival was unexpected, it was also shocking. No need to be so polite. The gentle voice was particularly deep and contained a supreme, majestic aura. Everyone present responded in unison. Thank you, Lord Sovereign. Everyone raised their heads. Even the most arrogant genius did not dare to be arrogant in front of him. Chu Hen swept his gaze across. The leader of the martial organization looked to be around 40 years old. His appearance was about the same age as the leader of the Dongxian Peak, Ao Yunzhuang. However, the dignity between his brows was something that Ao Yunzhuang could not compare to. The other party stood on top of the star, peak like a king looking down at his subjects, and he had an invisible and powerful aura that was deep and restrained. Is this the Lord Sovereign? Doesn't he only come for the finals? Zhao Qingkai whispered. I don't know. He only comes for the finals. Wu Mian replied in a low voice. How domineering. No one dares to breathe too loudly. Looking at the martial sect disciples below, the sovereign's gaze was gentle. He raised his hand and said, Everyone, don't stand on ceremony. Just do as before. I am now also one of the audience. With that, he flicked his sleeves and sat down on the stone chair behind him. With that, the atmosphere in the audience relaxed a little. Everyone's gaze was once again focused on Elder Lu at the front of the platform. The latter first exchanged glances with the 4 Peak Masters before nodding in tacit understanding. Today is the battle of the top 4. Elder Lu's voice was loud and clear. With a wave of his hand, a golden light flew out from his sleeve and transformed into a square light screen that was dozens of meters long. Buzz, buzz, on the light screen, 8 names slowly appeared. For battle lists appeared in front of everyone's eyes. According to yesterday's announcement, the first battle of the top 4 is between Beichen Peak Academy's Chu Hen and West Sky Peak Academy's Xiao Alliance. The noise swept through the audience. The West Sky Peak Academy was excited. As for the Beichen Peak Academy, they were whispering and there were even a few boos. Humph. He advanced by relying on women. How dare he go on stage? Let's see how he'll be tortured by Xiao Alliance's senior brother. Amidst the discussion, Chu Hen steadily appeared on the Ling Xiao fighting ring. He acted as if he didn't hear the gossip below the stage, and he appeared to be especially calm. He seems to be a new face. Qiu Xingyi, who was on the Xingqing Peak viewing platform, murmured in surprise. Looking at Chu Hen, the Beichen Peak Master Yuanshang frowned again. On the contrary, the West Sky Peak Master Sidhu Song revealed a playful smile. Then, everyone was surprised to find that Xiao Alliance had not appeared. Where is Xiao Alliance's senior brother? Is he here? I don't know, I haven't seen him. All the disciples looked at each other and looked for Xiao Alliance's figure. Elder Lu frowned and said in a deep voice, West Sky Peak Academy's Xiao Alliance, get on the stage immediately. However, there was no response. The atmosphere was a little chaotic. Sidhu Song's face also turned cold. Where is Xiao Alliance? Well, he doesn't seem to be here. Someone responded. Didn't come? Wasn't this causing trouble? The battle of the top 4 was such a big scene, and he was absent for no reason, especially when the sect master was here. Chapter 1233. Let's move on to the second match first. The first match will be the last for now. As soon as Elder Lu's words were spoken, many voices of debate couldn't help but rise below the stage. That's weird. Xiao Alliance is actually absent for such an important event. Could it be that he's about to break through and is in seclusion? I don't think so. I didn't hear any news of him going into seclusion. Even if he's about to break through, it's not as important as the sect battle. There were whispers below the stage. On Xingxing Peak, Beichen Peak Master Yuan Shang snorted and said with dissatisfaction, "Latecomers should be treated as forfeits." Not far away, Sidu Song, the West Dome Peak Master, raised his eyebrows and replied with slight disdain, "It's not a big deal. Why are you so strict? Huh? How can he not show up for the Battle of the Top Four? Is this not a big deal?" I think Peak Master Yuan Shang is afraid that the one from your Beichen Peak Academy will lose too badly. Right? That's right. A person who relies on a woman to advance can only try to grab any opportunity to squeeze his way up. Beichen Peak Academy. Haha. It's really getting worse year by year. Yuan Shang's face turned ashen from the other party's words. Sida's song was simply too much. It was fine if he said such things before, but now that the sect master was present, the other party still didn't give him any face at all. This really angered Yuan Shang. "All right, the two of you should stop talking," Nanling Peak Master Ning Qiushui advised. At the same time, Chu Hen, who had walked around the fighting ring, returned outside. Elder Liu immediately ordered someone to bring Shao Alliance over. Let's move on to the second match of the top four. Dongxian Peak Academy's Qi Qianing versus Beichen Peak Academy's Long Xuan. As soon as the announcement was made, the discussions about Chu Hen and Shao Alliance immediately turned into loud cheers. Everyone turned to look at Qi Qianing expectantly. Looks like it's a good thing that Shao Alliance is late. We can watch senior sister Qianing's glory earlier. That's right. But that new junior sister Long isn't bad either. Both of them are great beauties. I don't even know who to support. Is there a need to think? Of course, senior sister Qianing will win. The winner will definitely be senior sister Qianing. There's no doubt about that. Let's see how far junior sister Long can persevere. On the southern viewing platform, Chu Hen, Yi Yao, Zhao Qingyi, and the others all focus their attention on Long Xuan. "Come on, sister Xuan," Yi Yao said. "Remember my words. Try not to let her get close to you," Wu Yin also reminded softly. Chu Hen, on the other hand, did not say much. He merely signaled with his eyes that the other party should try his best. After that, two peerlessly gorgeous and beautiful figures ascended the arena respectively. One of them was delicate and pretty elegant like jade. One had a cold and elegant temperament like frost. The two of them ascended the stage at the same time, like a beautiful scenery, could not help but make people's eyes light up. Even though Qi Qianing was ranked 4th on the Sky Martial leaderboard, and Long Xuan was only a newcomer for less than 2 years, be it in terms of temperament or appearance, they were not inferior to Qi Qianing. Interesting. Below the stage, Wang Li raised her eyebrows slightly, and a lazy smile appeared on her lips. Pei's eyes darkened slightly, and he crossed his arms in front of him. To be honest, he was still a little surprised that Yang Ao would lose to a newcomer. "Senior Sister Qi, please advise me." Long Xuan's red lips parted slightly, and her tone was as calm as water. Qi Qianing's clear eyes flickered, and she replied indifferently, "I can't advise you. Let's see if you have the strength to defeat me. Let's begin. You're a newcomer. I'll let you go first." Even though it was a prideful statement, there was no hint of provocation in her tone. Long Xuan raised her eyes slightly, and then she brought her palms together, and a powerful whirlpool of ice energy swept out from her body. "I'll do as you say, Senior Sister Qi, solid ice type." Whoosh! With a roar of ice, a powerful white whirlpool spilled out from Long Xuan's body, and like a dancing white dragon, it pounced towards Qi Qianing. Wherever the whirlpool went, the ground quickly froze. As it moved, the tip of the thick whirlpool immediately became extremely sharp, and from afar, it looked like a magnificent large ice spear. Swoosh! A bone-chilling cold wind blew against Qi Qianing's face, and her dress and hair danced in the wind. A gentle light flashed in her eyes, and an obscure energy wave rapidly spread from her body. Rumble! In the next moment, The stone platform beside her feet cracked open, and a thick stone wall that exuded a simple and unadorned aura suddenly rose. Bang! The huge ice spear slammed heavily into the wall and instantly exploded into several pieces, and dense ice shards filled the sky. Then, the two sides of the stone wall suddenly exploded, and two crescent-shaped ice fangs drilled out from the ground. The ice fangs closed in from the left and right, and attacked Qi Qianying, who was behind the stone wall. What fast reflexes! Everyone's eyes lit up. The moment the two ice fangs closed in, a beam of light shot into the sky like a flowing shadow. Everyone's gaze immediately followed the source of the voice. Qi Qianying stood in the air, staring at Long Xuanchuang, who was in front of her. Then, she raised her hand and moved her fair and slender fingers gently, and a silver needle appeared between her fingers. The silver needle was about 20 centimeters long, and it looked like an unadorned hairpin. Qi Qianying moved her wrist, and the silver needle in her hand turned into a ray of light that shot downwards. It was so fast that it looked like a starry arrow. Long Xuanchuang's pupils shrank slightly. She condensed her palm in the air, and a cold aura of ice spread out from her palm. It followed the momentum and wrapped around the silver needle like a tassel. In an instant, the silver needle was directly wrapped in a thick layer of ice. It was like an ice mirror. Just when everyone thought that the silver needle's attack had been completely weakened, there was a crisp bang, and the ice mirror that wrapped the silver needle suddenly exploded into thousands of pieces in the next moment. A fair, jade-like hand grasped the silver needle in her hand. Everyone in the audience was shocked. Qi Qianying, who was hundreds of meters away, suddenly flashed in front of Long Xuanchuang. Instant kill. Senior sister Qianying's movement speed is too fast. Swoosh. Qi Qianying held the silver needle in one hand and stabbed it at Long Xuanchuang in front of her. At the same time, she opened her other hand, and a ball of rapidly condensed true origin energy emitted an extremely powerful energy fluctuation, a double attack. Even if she blocked one attack, there was still another. Qi Qianying's counterattack caused everyone to exclaim in surprise. She was really fast. Chapter 1234. Instant kill. It was like a glimpse of a dazzling flash. Qi Qianying appeared in front of Long Xuanchuang the moment the ice mirror shattered. She held the silver needle in one hand and condensed a powerful wave of energy in the other. The audience could almost see Long Xuanchuang being eliminated as they watched Qi Qianying's double attack. It's about to end. Long Xuanchuang narrowed her eyes, and her pupils reflected the swift and violent attack that whistled through the air. Then she actually took 2 steps back. It was a seemingly clumsy and ineffective way to retreat. There was no way she could dodge Qi Qianying's attack at such a short distance. But just as Long Xuanchuang retreated, a ball of white ice whirlpool in the air started to condense together quickly. It was like a ball of water that had turned from liquid to solid. A blurry silhouette appeared. In an instant, a frost guard clad in battle armor and wielding a spear suddenly appeared between the two of them. What's that? Everyone in the audience was shocked as well. At the same time, the silver needle in Qi Qianying's hand struck the frost guard first. Crack! A spider web of cracks immediately appeared in front of the frost guard. Then, the silver needle pierced through the frost guard's chest with incredible penetrative force. Then, it flew out of Qi Qianying's fingers and attacked Long Xuanchuang again. Long Xuanchuang tilted her body slightly, and the shining silver needle brushed past her right shoulder. Nice! Nice dodge. The hearts of the Beichun Peak Academy disciples lit up, and they secretly cheered for Long Xuanchuang. But the moment she dodged the silver needle, a powerful wave of energy followed closely behind Long Xuanchuang. What? His relaxed heartstrings tensed up again. Boom! A heavy shockwave spread out on the stage, sending rocks flying and ice shards flying in all directions. The place where Long Xuanchuang was standing had shockingly opened up a hole that was tens of meters wide. Qi Qianying stood alone amidst the swirling dust and wind. Her beautiful eyebrows were filled with slight surprise. "He actually dodged it again," she murmured softly. Then, she raised her head and looked up into the sky. The tall and slender figure that was as cold as ice was surrounded by white ice vortexes that looked like illusory dragons. The audience widened their eyes. Long Xuan, who was still on the ground a second ago, had already flashed to the sky. She quickly formed a seal with her 10 fingers. Her eyes were as clear as frost, and her aura was as cold as a knife. Swish, swish, swish. Then a vast and surging wave of chilly energy surged towards Qi Qianying below. The dense ice vortexes condensed into ice pillars that fell diagonally from the sky. Qi Qianying's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, and she immediately retreated. Bang, bang, bang. Sharp ice pillars that looked like large wooden stakes continuously hit the stage, causing rubble to fly up into the air. The sharp ice pillars pierced deep into the ground. The chilly energy spread in all directions, and it was incomparably spectacular. The back and forth between the two of them could be said to be somewhat difficult for the audience to keep up with the rhythm. Initially, he thought Qi Qianying would be able to end the battle in a few moves with her elusive instant kill technique. He did not expect Long Xuan's reflexes to be as good as hers. Not only was she not suppressed, but she was also able to calmly counterattack. It's much more exciting than I imagined. Below the stage, Wang Li raised his handsome eyebrows lightly with a frivolous smile on his face. His eyes were as cold as the ice water of a 1,000-year deep pool, and it was impossible to tell whether he was happy or angry. On the Northern Star Peak spectator stand, Qiu Xingyi, who was ranked first on the Heaven Marshal ranking, watched the battle on the stage in surprise. "It seems like there are many outstanding newcomers this year. I think junior sister Qi won't have it easy." Rumble. 20 to 30 majestic large ice pillars fell continuously. The piercingly cold aura covered the sky and earth, and the bone-piercing cold spread from the stage in all directions. Although Long Xuan's attack rhythm was especially fast, Qi Qianying's movement speed was even more agile. She was as agile as a dragonfly on water, and she continuously changed her position. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Qi Qianying tiptoed and stepped on the ice pillar that had fallen on the stage. She soared into the sky and flew towards Long Xuan's position. Whoosh! The snowstorm roared. Under Long Xuan's control, the endless cold that filled the sky and earth whistled like a hurricane. Numerous sharp ice mirrors and ring-shaped wind blades rapidly formed and pounced towards Qi Qianying. Facing such a concentrated attack, Qi Qianying did not panic at all. She waved her hand and threw a silver needle. Buzz! As it moved, the silver needle shone brightly. The condensed light converged on the outside, like a sharp sword shadow. Wherever it went, it was like a hot knife through butter. All the wind blades and ice mirrors that came into contact with it were all shattered by the impact. The majestic ice whirlwind was directly torn open. It was like a sharp arrow that broke through the storm whirlpool, piercing through the periphery and reaching the center. Long Xuan frowned slightly. Her palms faced each other, and a spiral-shaped white aura rapidly formed a frost sword that was overflowing with cold air. Ice blue light patterns flashed, and circles of aura spread out. With a single thought, the frost blade sword flew through the air and faced the phantom silver needles head-on. Bang! As soon as the two collided, a violent shockwave erupted in the sky, and the condensed light patterns exploded in the air. At the same time that the silver needle was repelled, Long Xuan actually retreated without hesitation. Swoosh! However, in the next moment, a silver shadow surrounded by flowing light flew towards her again. The sound of the air wave cutting through the air was especially clear. The second incomparably sharp silver needle was reflected in Long Xuan's narrowed eyes. There was more than one silver needle. In a hurry, Long Xuan retreated and dodged. Then, beams of dazzling silver light shot through the air, like the meteors that had been flying for tens of thousands of years. They dragged their tails through the air and attacked Long Xuan. Long Xuanchuang's lily-white hand condensed, and a short ice dagger that resembled white jade appeared in her palm. One after another, the silver needles attacked. Long Xuanchuang continuously used the ice dagger in her hand to deflect the silver needles. Ding, ding, ding. The crisp sound continued to spread. The air was not filled with sparks, but with chaotic true inner force and condensed ice energy. Qi Qinying's attack was swift and fierce, dazzling and overwhelming. Even though Long Xuanchuang was able to block the silver needles accurately, her position was getting lower and lower. In the blink of an eye, she was forced back to the ground by Qi Qinying. The moment Long Xuanchuang returned to the stage, a dozen dull sounds overlapped with each other. Long Xuanchuang's expression changed slightly. The audience was shocked. With Long Xuanchuang as the center, a dozen silver needles fell to the ground and formed a circle around her. Buzz, before Long Xuanchuang could react, the dozen of silver needles around her all gave off an extremely strong energy wave at the same time. Every two silver needles connected with each other and formed a circle of light. The space inside the circle of light immediately fell into an uneasy state of distortion. Countless sharp auras attacked from all directions. Qi Qinying hovered in the air, looking down at Long Xuanchuang. Her lips moved slightly as she softly shouted, "Thousand feathers, godly kill." Whoosh! Invisible, surging waves of air swept out in all directions. Inside the circle of light, countless sharp arrows of light suddenly appeared out of thin air. Each arrow of light flashed with a cold light. From all directions, up, down, left, right, from all angles, they struck towards Long Xuanchuang, who was in the middle. Bang, bang, bang. The stage inside the circle of light cracked and exploded. The thick stone tiles were instantly pulverized. Thousands of light beams intertwined in the air and shot into the sky. The audience was shocked. Even Yao, Zhao Qingyi, and the others couldn't help but change their expressions. Not good. Chapter 1235. Thousand Feathers Divine Kill. Dozens of silver needles formed a circle, like a terrifying barrier that was triggered instantly. An unparalleled killing intent suddenly burst out from the inside, shattering the stone tiles on the ground inch by inch and crushing them into powder. Tens of thousands of dazzling light beams interweaved with each other, tearing apart the space inside. Long Xuanchuang's pupils constricted to the size of a needle. In the next moment, countless aurora arrows intertwined with an aura that could tear everything apart. Boom! Like a storm of arrows, a destructive force erupted from within the huge halo, and dazzling rays of light soared into the sky. The terrifying power was concentrated within the circle of light, intertwining and tearing, and the platform inside immediately caved in, revealing dense and neat vertical cracks. However, the area outside the circle of light was intact, showing that not a single bit of power had leaked out. In the blink of an eye, Long Xuanchuang's elegant figure was immediately drowned in the endless rain of light arrows. Oh no! The disciples of Beichun Peak Academy were all shocked, their eyes wide open. Just a moment ago, they were all cheering for Long Xuanchuang's performance, but in the blink of an eye, she was already in danger. Sister Xuanchuang? Yao Wu Mian, Zhao Qingkai and the rest were also anxious. On the other hand, Chu Hen and Wu Yin frowned, their eyes fixed on the chaotic power within the storm of arrows. Women are really scary when they get serious. Wang Li shook her head, showing a cynical and lazy look. On the other side, Pei Ye's lips curled into a cold arc, looking at the situation in front of him with a faint smile. At this moment, the disciples of Dongxian Peak Academy had already begun to celebrate. We really can't expect too much from a new disciple. It's not bad that she lasted for so long. In the entire martial sect, I'm afraid there's no female disciple who can be compared to senior sister Qianing. However, at this moment, the noise from below the stage suddenly stopped. Everyone present was startled. Even the high-ranking elders and the 8 masters of the peak courtyards on the Star Peaks viewing platform revealed surprised expressions. What's that? The cold and desolate killing force gradually faded away. Inside the sunken light circle, where all the bricks had been crushed, there was an ice ball with a diameter of 7 to 8 meters. The snow-white sphere exuded an icy chill. It looked like a huge pearl. The surface of a snowball was covered with fine, deep, round holes and long, neat, vertical marks. Gotcha! Just at this moment, countless cracks appeared on the snowball. Then, with a soft bang, sound like a bubble breaking, the huge snowball exploded into frost and ice crystals that filled the sky. At this moment, the cold and elegant figure once again appeared in everyone's line of sight. What? Everyone was shocked. The hearts of the Beichen Peak Academy disciples lit up. The eyes of Yi Yao, Wu Yin, Zhao Qingyi, and the rest were also shining brightly. Long Xuanchuang's aura was still strong, her eyes like the moon, dazzling. Although there were no obvious wounds on her body, there were a few bloodstains with red ice crystals on the back of her left hand. At the center of her brows, a snowflake-shaped spirit tattoo faintly flickered with a strange soft light. What a strong ice attribute bloodline boundary. On the Star Peaks viewing platform, Qiu Xingyi, who was ranked first on the heavenly martial list, muttered in surprise. Even the martial sect master's eyes were filled with surprise. The atmosphere below the stage was changing. Long Xuanchuang slightly raised her head, her pair of phoenix eyes looking straight at Qi Qianying in the sky. Buzz, at the same time, a cold light flashed, and Qi Qianying instantly disappeared. Before the crowd could find her position, a strong gust of wind directly attacked from behind Long Xuanchuang. Her position changed so quickly like a spirit, appearing and disappearing unpredictably. Feeling the majestic force behind her, Long Xuanchuang slightly leaned to the side, and a thick ice vortex swept out from the center of her palm. In an instant, the surface of the platform behind him split apart, and numerous icy teeth that seemed like saw teeth broke out from beneath the ground. Row after row of sharp ice fangs, like the huge mouth of a man-eating flower, closed in on Qi Qianying, who was charging towards him. Bang! However, at the same time, when the sharp ice teeth closed in, Qi Qianying once again disappeared on the spot. When her opponent changed her position, Long Xuanchuang put her palms together, releasing the powerful boundary power of her bloodline. Rumble! The stage trembled, and then an ice mountain that was almost 100 feet tall immediately rose from the soaring sky battle platform. The cold air that covered the sky and the earth spread wantonly. The majestic ice mountain occupied almost a third of the entire soaring sky battle platform. It was especially spectacular. Long Xuanchuang stood at the peak of the ice mountain while ice vortexes enveloped the heavens and the earth. She seemed like a mysterious shaman spirit that controlled the energy of ice and snow. Everyone in the surroundings exclaimed endlessly with admiration. Long Xuanchuang probably intended to control the entire battle platform and not give Qi Qianying any chance to get close to her. Swish! In the next second, a silver needle pierced through the air and shot towards Qi Qianying. Long Xuanchuang's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly, and then she issued a command in her heart. An enormous ice pillar stretched out from the cliff beneath her, and it seemed like a bridge that hung in midair as it intercepted the silver needle in midair. Buzz! Space trembled slightly, and then Qi Qianying immediately flashed to the ice pillar that hung in midair. She flipped her palm, and then 3 silver needles shot out explosively from between her fingers. Whoosh! At practically the exact same moment, an enormous and powerful ice spear descended from the sky, and it didn't slow down in the slightest as it struck the 3 silver needles away. Bang! The ice spear collided with the enormous ice pillar, and like a collapsing bridge, large chunks of ice came crashing down. As expected, Qi Qianying disappeared from where she was once again and reappeared at another location. However, Long Xuanchuang seemed to be prepared for this. The moment she reappeared, an arc-shaped wind blade that was dozens of meters wide tore through the air and slashed downwards. Bang! Bang! Intense energy collided continuously on the surface of the platform. Qi Qianying's instant kill technique could be described as elusive and the speed at which she changed her position was dazzling. However, the most shocking thing was Long Xuanxuang. No matter how fast Qi Qianying's attacks were, her opponent was always able to react in time. One after another, enormous ice pillars rose from the surface of the platform. They looked like sparkling and translucent ice sculptures. Long Xuanxuang kept Qi Qianying within a certain defensive perimeter, and after a series of attacks, Qi Qianying was unable to get close to her. Everyone below the stage was even more surprised. Even Wu Yin shook her head in amazement. Junior Sister Long is truly unexpected. There's not a single gap in her defense. She's truly amazing. Zhao Qingyi nodded in praise. Chu Hen's eyes narrowed slightly, and his brows furrowed as he pondered. At this moment, the audience's heartstrings were stretched taut. Everyone was extremely nervous. No one had expected that a new disciple like Long Xuanxuang would be able to fight with Qi Qianying, who was ranked 4th on the Heaven Martial leaderboard, to such an extent. Boom! An extraordinarily sharp wind blade collided with Qi Qianying's palm energy. Ice shards filled the sky, along with chaotic inner energy, and a vast wave of air surged forth. Qi Qianying didn't disappear on the spot this time. She looked at Long Xuanxuang, who was standing on the peak of the ice mountain, in surprise. You're actually able to pinpoint my location every single time. You're indeed quite capable. Long Xuanxuang lifted her eyes slightly and replied calmly. Wherever the silver needle goes, it'll be the location you've teleported to. What? The moment her words left her mouth, the entire place burst into an uproar. Many martial ancestor sect's disciples were shocked and enlightened. Was this the secret of Qi Qianying's instant kill tactic? Wu Yan, Zhao Qingyi, Yi Yao, and the rest were shocked. As for Wang Li, Pei Yi, Qiu Xingyi, and a few other geniuses, they were rather calm. Chu Hen's expression was calm as well. In fact, he had long seen through Qi Qianying's battle technique. Her instant kill tactic was somewhat similar to his soaring celestial flash. One used the silver needle as a guide, while the other used the blue Ran sword as a guide. However, it was obvious that Qi Qianying's instant kill tactic was much more powerful than his soaring celestial flash. The instant kill tactic allowed one to move to many different locations. The soaring celestial flash, on the other hand, could only choose one location. Moreover, in terms of frequency of usage, the instant kill tactic far surpassed the soaring celestial flash. In comparison, Chu Hen was slightly inferior to Qi Qianying in terms of instant kill tactic. So, Qi Qianying raised her eyebrows slightly. I've memorized the locations of all the silver needles, and I can also sense the faint fluctuation of energy coming from them. Long Xuanxuang replied. Clamor. The moment her words left her mouth, the entire place burst into an uproar again. Chapter 1236. I've memorized the positions of all the silver needles, and I can also sense the weak fluctuations of power coming from them. Long Xuanxuang replied indifferently. Whoosh! In an instant, the surroundings were filled with clamorous noise, while astonishment faintly surged out from the hearts of all the geniuses. Even the martial ancestor realm higher-ups on the Star Peak viewing platform nodded approvingly. This woman is extremely talented. I wonder why she wasn't famous before. An elder asked casually. Haha, do you still need to ask? I'm afraid Beichin Peak Academy hit her on purpose. Do you think so? Dean Luo Tsang? Dean Luo Tsang only smiled awkwardly in response to the questions from the people around him and did not say much. Based on her current performance, Long Xuanxuang's strength was probably above Yi Yao's. Previously, Beichin Peak Academy only valued Yi Yao, but not Long Xuanxuang. This was a big miscalculation for them. Luo Tsang secretly thought that he hoped Long Xuanxuang would not hold a grudge in the future. Whoosh! The bone-chilling ice vortex covered the sky and earth, like a winter blizzard enveloping the huge Lingxiao arena. On the arena, on the peak of the ice mountain, Long Xuanxuang showed her extraordinary elegance. Huge ice pillars stood on the stone platform, like luxurious ice sculptures. Qi Qianying's eyes glowed faintly, and her beautiful eyebrows raised slightly. You can actually remember all the positions. It's really not easy, but she paused, and a strange energy wave was released from her body, and the invisible airflow became extremely agitated. Whoosh! The rapid airflow spread across the arena, and several powerful auras surged from different positions around Long Xuan Xuan. In an instant, the expressions of the many spectators changed. Wang Li, Pei Yi, Qiu Xingyi, and the other top geniuses narrowed their eyes. 5 identical Qi Qianying had appeared in the air above the soaring firmament battle ring. This is senior sister Qianying's bloodline limit. It's a divine body that can clone itself. This was almost everyone's first time witnessing Qi Qianying's bloodline limit. Everyone was amazed as they stared at the 5 Qi Qianyings whose auras were exactly the same. The same bloodline boundary as Han Ichuan? Chu Hen's eyes darkened as he muttered to himself. Han Ichuan, who had stayed with the ancestral butterfly clan with Xiao Xiaowan, possessed a constitution that allowed him to create clones. However, in comparison, the aura of Qi Qianying's avatar was exactly the same. There was not the slightest difference. It was impossible to tell which one was the real one. Whoosh! There seemed to be a sharp vibration in the air. The 5 Qi Qianyings simultaneously flashed the silver needles in their hands. What about now? Can you find where I am? Her cold voice was like water from an ancient well. Although it was calm, there was a sense of loneliness in it. As soon as she finished speaking, the 5 Qi Qianyings stepped into the air and charged toward Long Xuan Xuan at the peak of the ice mountain. The 5 Qi Qianyings immediately brandished the silver needles in their hands. Beams of light that flickered with dazzling divine radiance shuttled through the sky, tearing apart the icy vortex airflow. They were like flying arrows that pierced through the nebula, showing off their sharpness. The hearts of the crowd rose to their throats once more. Yi Yao, Zhao Qingkai, Wu Mian, and the others all frowned with solemn expressions on their faces. However, at this moment, the snowflake mark on Long Xuan Xuan's forehead blossomed with a dazzling light. It was like a divine explosion of light. Whoosh! A cold current that nearly froze the air stirred the sky and formed a roaring snowstorm. Then, in the sky above Long Xuan Xuan, a violent wave of energy swept out. Endless cold air gathered together. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, a huge transparent figure appeared between heaven and earth. The figure was like a dream. Its facial features were slightly blurred, and its face was covered by a veil. It gave people the feeling that it was a snow demoness that controlled the power of 10,000 years of winter. This is? Everyone was shocked, and their eyes widened. Whoosh! An incomparably cold and solid icy vortex surged in all directions. All the silver needles that were attacking Long Xuan Xuan were frozen in place. Create with cold and solidify with ice. Long Xuan Xuan's eyes slightly trembled as she formed seals with her 2 fingers. The snow demoness behind her spread out her arms and emitted a powerful aura similar to that of an ancient witch. The 5 Qi Qianyings couldn't help but pause. A thin layer of frost quietly condensed around their bodies. In the next moment, an incomparably sturdy ice spear descended from the sky like a divine punishment and struck one of them. Boom! Qi Qianying, who was smashed to the ground, exploded into a ball of golden light. 1. Kacha! Along with the sound of ice rubbing against each other, 3 10-meter-tall giant guards condensed in the air. These giant guards were formed from ice. They were clad in armor and held a spear in their hands. They looked like lifeless, undead warriors. The spears, which were filled with sharp and lethal power, burst forth with a magnificent and powerful storm spear rain. Bang! 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 3 Qi Qianyings were shattered by the frost giant in a row. Amazing! Great! The Beichun Peak Academy disciples were excited and their confidence was restored. At this moment, even the 4 Peak Masters revealed a solemn expression, especially the Beichun Peak Master, Yuan Shang, who couldn't help but clench his fists. Created with cold, formed with wind and snow. Dongfang Hung, Ji murmured softly. His eyes flashed, and he paused before he continued. Solidified with ice. It's actually so similar to the Ice Empress power. Bang! After killing 4 Qi Qianyings in a row, Long Xuanchuang instantly turned the situation around. Qi Qianying, the only one left, was immediately surrounded by 3 giant guards. The 3 ice giants extended their spears at the same time. White pillars of light shot toward Qi Qianying from different directions. The 3 white pillars of light shot toward Qi Qianying and immediately formed a circular ice prison. Qi Qianying was directly trapped in the ice prison. Her body was frozen, and she could not move at all. She's trapped me. The Beichen Peak Academy disciples became more and more excited. You've lost, Long Xuanchuang said indifferently. However, there was no trace of panic on her face. Instead, she smirked and said with a playful smile, Are you sure? Are you sure? These 3 simple words caused everyone's heartstrings to tremble. Thud! The sound of a sharp weapon piercing through ice rang out from the left side of Long Xuanchuang. Everyone's eyes suddenly narrowed. A slender silver needle with mysterious patterns firmly pierced into the ice wall behind the iceberg. Rapid airflow surged as a ghost-like figure flashed through the air. In an instant, the 6th Qi Qianying suddenly appeared on the left side of Long Xuanchuang. What? Where's the real body? The Beichen Peak Academy disciples were shocked, but the Dongxin Peak Academy disciples were overjoyed. Looks like you've missed the most important position. Along with a light tone, an extremely powerful and majestic aura burst out from the 6th Qi Qianying's body. The palm energy was like an undercurrent in the deep sea. An incomparably heavy explosion sounded out. The huge snow wind banshee image that enveloped Long Xuanchuang was immediately torn apart by the impact. The aftermath of the chaotic energy swept out in all directions. The moment the snow wind enchantress shattered, Qi Qianying's palm energy landed on Long Xuanchuang's body without any hindrance. In the end, she still lost. The hearts of many of Long Xuanchuang's supporters sank to the bottom. But at this moment, a frightening power came crashing down. Long Xuanchuang, who did not have the time to dodge, was directly shattered into a pile of ice fragments. What is this? Ice clone? The Dongxin Peak Master, Ao Yunzhuang, subconsciously blurted out. Before the crowd could react, a clear voice quietly came from a large ice pillar on the west side of the high firmament platform. I'm sorry, I did not miss any position, Hua. At this moment, the many elders of the martial sect could no longer sit still. Even the various peak courtyard masters could not help but stand up. Tens of thousands of gazes uniformly swept towards the same place. At the top of the west side of the icicle, a beautiful figure with peerless beauty, as cold as frost, stood sideways. In her hand, there was a light longbow that was pulled to the fullest, overflowing with colorful lights, swaying luxuriously on the bowstring. A solid arrow flickered with a gorgeous light pattern. A trap within a trap, a spy within a spy. While the crowd was still shocked by the appearance of the 6th Qi Qianying, the real Long Xuanchuang had already secretly drawn her profound rain bow. Xiao. Without any hesitation, Long Xuanchuang loosened her fingers. A beam of divine light pierced through the sky, stunning the heavens and earth, illuminating countless pairs of eyes. Qi Qianying's pupils rapidly shrank to the size of needles. A trace of shock quietly spread on her pretty face. Recently, many readers have come to ask me why I don't reply to their comments. I need to mention here that the book, The Divine King of Martial Apex, was first published on the Chasing Waves website. I don't have the authority to reply to other websites. For example, Palm Reader, Tencent Book Reader, Miguyu, etc. I don't have the authority to reply or communicate with them. As a result, many readers have voted for me and sent me gifts, but I can't reply or thank them. When I don't update in time, I can only inform everyone on the Chasing Waves website, which has caused a lot of criticism. I really appreciate the support of every reader. It's not that I don't want to reply to everyone, but I don't have the authority to do so. Therefore, if anyone has any questions, feel free to leave a message in the Chasing Waves book review section. Even if it's just a casual conversation, I will reply to everyone one by one. Chapter 1237. A trap within a trap, a spy within a spy. Swoosh! In an instant, a beam of divine light pierced through the sky, stunning the world. Like an arrow streaking across the night sky, it flew toward Chi, chinnying on the ice mountain. The heavy whistling sound of air waves was incomparably clear. The world spun, and the space trembled. Hiss! The rapid and sharp sound stimulated the eardrums of everyone present. Under countless shocked gazes, the colorful arrow directly pierced through the right shoulder of the sixth Chi, chinnying, breathtaking, brilliant, dazzling. Frost and dust filled the sky. Chi Chinying's pupils rapidly dilated, and her pretty face trembled. Hit! Everyone from the Beichin Peak Academy felt their hearts almost jump out of their throats. Their eyes lit up. Yi Yao, Zhao Qingkai, Wu Yin, and the others also revealed expressions of excitement. Sister Xuan is going to win. Chi Chinying's right shoulder was pierced by the mystic rainbow's ice arrow, and she drifted down like a feather. Her body glowed with a bright golden light, and then with a bang, she turned into golden shadows that filled the sky. What? A gust of bleak and sudden cold wind blew past, and the whole place was deathly silent. Whoosh! The next moment, true yuan waves that resembled fallen leaves fluttered in the sky. On the large ice pillar on the west side of the soaring sky arena, Long Xuan let out a soft sigh, and a faint trace of loneliness appeared in her clear eyes. An invisible wave of air spread out, and everyone's pupils shrank slightly. Behind Long Xuan stood a delicate and refined figure. Chi Chinying held a silver needle in one hand, and the silver needle gently touched Long Xuan's back. Although it did not pierce through, the outcome was already decided. You've lost, Junior Sister Long. The reversal of scene after scene had already caused most of the people present to be at a loss. Their hearts were in turmoil, and their thoughts could not keep up with the pace of the two. What's going on? There's another clone. No, including the main body, there's a total of 6. 6? Including the one just now, we've already eliminated 5 of them, and there's still one trapped. The voices of the crowd below the stage paused, followed by a thick sense of astonishment and disbelief. The 5th Chi Chinying, who had been imprisoned in the ice prison by the 3 frost giants, had disappeared without a trace. This is? Everyone looked at each other. Was the 5th Chi Chinying really the original Chi Chinying? Everyone in the room was confused. Surprised, right? Chi Chinying asked softly. Long Xuan glanced sideways as a trace of doubt flashed across her brows. According to her thinking, the last one to appear was definitely Chi Chinying's main body, and the first 5 were undoubtedly clones. However, that was not the case. The corner of Chi Chinying's mouth raised slightly as she continued to say, "Not only does my instant killing tactic allow me to change my position at will, but I can also switch between my main body and my clone at will." As soon as these words were spoken, the audience couldn't help but be in an uproar. A look of enlightenment appeared on everyone's faces. In other words, Long Xuan's judgment was correct. The last Chi Chinying to appear was the original Chi Chinying. However, due to her unique bloodline power, she had immediately switched places with her clone the moment Long Xuan's arrow flew towards her. Thus, the 5th Chi Chinying who had been imprisoned became the original Chi Chinying. This was the secret of the instant killing tactic. It was also the bloodline power that Chi Chinying was most proud of. It was because of this that Chi Chinying managed to turn the tables at the last moment. I see. Long Xuan nodded. At the same time, the chilly airflow that pervaded the world quickly receded. The ice mountain and the many ice pillars on the platform also crumbled inch by inch, turning into ice crystal fragments that filled the sky and dissipating in the air. Chi Chinying withdrew the silver needle in her hand and returned to the stage with Long Xuan. Relatively speaking, the outcome was relatively peaceful. However, the audience below the stage had been nervous the entire time. With that arrow, Long Xuanchuang had avoided hitting Qi Qianying's vitals, choosing to hit her right shoulder instead. Qi Qianying hadn't gone all out in the end either. Although the battle between the two women hadn't been a violent one, nor had the entire arena been blown apart, it had been a battle of wits and schemes. Time after time of reversals and gorgeous collisions, it was truly an eye-opener. The winner is Dongxian Peak Academy's Qi Qianying. Elder Lu announced loudly. The Dongxian Peak Academy disciples cheered. Although Beichen Peak Academy felt it was a pity, they too applauded Long Xuanchuang's performance. Even though she had lost, it was still admirable. Junior sister Long is already very impressive. She didn't lose unjustly. Beichen Peak Academy didn't embarrass themselves this time. Not at all. This was the affirmation everyone gave to Long Xuanchuang. Cheers and cheers rose and fell, resounding through the heavens and earth. On Xingqing Peak, the Peak Academy masters all had their own thoughts in their hearts. Situ Song, the West Dome Peak Master, said with a profound smile. She nearly lost. It seems that it will be a little difficult for Dongxian Peak Academy to rely on Qi Qianying to become the champion this year. Dongxian Peak Master Ao Yinzhuang's eyes slightly sank as he glanced sideways, but did not reply. On the contrary, the South Spiritual Academy Master, Ning Qiushui, spoke with even more praise. That Long Xuanchuang's talent is excellent. I'm afraid that it's even above that of Yi Yao. I wonder if Peak Master Yuan Shang has secretly taught her? Without waiting for Yuan Shang's reply, Situ Song smiled frivolously. Long Xuanchuang and Yao have completely different fighting styles. How can a master teach two different disciples? Yuan Shang frowned and coldly snorted. So what if I taught her? So what if I didn't teach her? I only know that she's a disciple of my Beichun Peak Academy. As for her talent, you don't have to worry about her bloodline. That's reasonable. However, after today, everyone from the Beichen Peak Academy will be excluded from the top 4. Situ Song did not hide the ridicule in his words. Currently, the most powerful disciples of the Beichen Peak Academy, Wu Yin, Yi Yao, and Long Xuanchuang, had all been eliminated. Only Chu Hen, who had many controversies, was left. The situation wasn't looking good. When the Shao Alliance arrives, the Beichen Peak Academy will stop here. Big Sister Xuanchuang, you're really amazing. Long Xuanchuang, who had just returned to the stage, was instantly welcomed with praising gazes from the people around her. Long Xuanchuang shook her head and looked at Chu Hen with slight disappointment. Unfortunately, she still lost. What kind of loss is this? No one knew that Qi Qianying's bloodline boundary would be so strange. If it wasn't for her special power, she would have been the one who lost, Wu Mian repeatedly refuted. Chu Hen also patted the other party's shoulder and gave him a look of affirmation. To be honest, this result was already the best. This was because Chu Hen didn't wish for Long Xuanchuang to meet any of the remaining 3 who had advanced to the top 4. Chapter 1238. Next is the second battle. South Spiritual Peak Academy's Wang Li versus East Profound Peak Academy's Lu Feng. As soon as Elder Lu's voice fell, the entire star-raising peak immediately erupted in shouts that soared to the heavens. However, the cheers were completely one-sided. Wang Li, Senior Brother Wang Li will win. Senior Brother Wang Li is the champion. As the second ranker on the Heaven Martial leaderboard, Wang Li's popularity was undeniable. However, it was worth mentioning that his opponent, Lu Feng, wasn't on the Heaven Martial leaderboard. Whether it was because of his good luck or something else, Lu Feng's opponents weren't on the Heaven Martial leaderboard since the start of the top 32. This was also the reason why he was able to enter the top 8 in such a stable state. Soon after, under the cheers of the crowd, the two of them stepped onto the arena. Lu Feng was tall and muscular, and his appearance was rather handsome. But even then, he seemed to be extremely weak before Wang Li. Wang, Senior Brother Wang Li, please guide me. Lu Feng's voice was a little uneasy. Wang Li revealed a gentle and lazy smile. Junior Brother Lu Feng, You seem to be very nervous? Lu Feng frowned and felt a chill down his spine when he saw Wang Li's frivolous smile. He clenched his fists, and a surge of yuan, qi, surged out from his body. However, before he could do anything, Lu Feng was like a frosted eggplant. Wilting, he slowly raised his left hand and said softly, "I forfeit." Sure. The audience booed and shook their heads to express their disinterest. However, most of them expressed their understanding. Facing the second ranker on the Heaven Martial leaderboard and the previous champion, Lu Feng didn't have the slightest intention to fight. Since it was obvious that he would lose, he wouldn't lose too badly if he chose to forfeit. Wise. Wang Li smiled with a hint of cynicism in his frivolousness. At the same time, Wang Li's position was distorted. His body was twisted together, and he disappeared from the arena. In the blink of an eye, he was back outside the arena. Qiu Xingyi's eyes lit up as he muttered to himself, "The power of this guy's 1,000 illusion bloodline is getting stronger." After Wang Liang left, Lu Feng heaved a sigh of relief. He waved his hand and wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Then, he ran off the stage as if he was fleeing. Oomph. Pei Yi snorted disdainfully from below the stage. Trash. Lu Feng has forfeited the second battle. Wang Li of the South Spiritual Peak Academy is the winner. Elder Lu was not the least bit surprised by this result. He lifted his gaze and looked at the golden light curtain suspended in the sky above the star-raising peak. Long Xuan and Lu Feng's names quietly shattered into ice shards. Also, Chu Hen against Xiao Alliance, Pei Yi against Wen Tao. These two matches hadn't started yet. Elder Lu glanced at the audience and hesitated for a moment before continuing to announce, "The third match, Pei Yi of the West Sky Peak Academy versus Wen Tao of the South Spirit Peak Academy." Voila! His shouts were not any weaker than Wang Li's. However, compared to the one-sided momentum just now, Pei Yi's opponent, Wen Tao, also had a lot of support. "Come on, senior brother Wen Tao. We believe you can win. Senior brother Wen Tao will win." Wen Tao, ranked 6th on the Heaven Martial list. His strength was also at the top of many martial Ancestor Realm disciples. In the quarterfinals yesterday, Zhao Qingkai had been defeated by Wen Tao. Moreover, he only lasted for about 10 moves before he was eliminated. Thinking of the situation yesterday, Zhao Qingkai pouted his lips with some hidden bitterness. "Do you wish for him to lose?" Zhao Qingyi laughed. However, Zhao Qingkai actually shook his head. The few people beside him were stunned. Yi Yao also casually asked, "Wasn't he the one who eliminated you yesterday?" "Yes, he was the one who eliminated me. However, senior brother Wen Tao is rather nice. He knew that I was a new disciple and deliberately showed mercy." The few of them couldn't help but smile. Although the top geniuses on the Heaven Martial list were more arrogant, there was no lack of gentle disciples like Wu Yin and Wen Tao. These kinds of people were rather amiable and approachable. Very soon, two young figures with extraordinary bearings ascended the soaring sky arena one after the other. The flow of air unwittingly sped up. Pei Yi crossed his arms in front of him and looked indifferently at the slender, handsome young man in front of him. "Compared to those trash who only know how to run away, you have some courage." Wen Tao's face darkened and his brows were full of seriousness. "Oomph. Others may be afraid of you, but I'm not. Very good. I hope I can still see your confident expression later." Wang, as his voice fell, a majestic force suddenly erupted from Wen Tao's body. Between heaven and earth, it set off a raging wave of true essence. The mighty power of spiritual power was like a void dragon python. Wen Tao's eyes were sharp like lightning, and both of his palms struck out in anger. "I'm going to teach you a lesson, Tiger Divine Seal." Roar! A tiger's roar shattered the mountains and rivers. In an instant, a fierce white beam of light surged out from Wen Tao's palms. The sky lost its color, the wind rose, and the clouds raged. The surroundings of the entire high sky arena immediately fell into darkness. The raging palm pillar went all the way towards Pei Yi. Wherever it went, the surface of the arena violently burst open, and a deep and wide ravine quickly split open. Inside the incomparably ferocious palm pillar, a solid white tiger was like a divine beast hidden within, emitting an endless ferocious aura that could destroy the world. He went all out the moment he made his move. Wen Tao did not hold back at all. Facing the terrifying power that was coming towards him, Pei Ye's eyes turned cold, and the corners of his mouth curled into a contemptuous smile. He did not move and stood straight on the spot. Bang! There was an earth-shattering sound, and the huge arena immediately erupted with a violent energy shock wave like a meteorite colliding. Layers of stone bricks were blown away, and the thick soil and stones were like a swarm of frightened locusts and moths. Countless deep fissures rapidly spread out in all directions, reaching all the way to the edge of the fighting ring. The fierce aftermath spread all the way out of the arena, and the elders of the martial sect immediately activated the protective formation to resist the violent power that overflowed from inside. What a powerful power! Everyone below the arena widened their eyes, and their hearts trembled. Wen Tao's aura continued to rise, and the white tiger within the palm pillar's shockwave was furious. Its body flickered with extremely dazzling dark golden patterns. Bang! Right at this moment, another explosion resounded, and a thick crimson-red flame spread out from where Pei Yi stood. Everyone's expression changed. Subsequently, a blurry afterimage moved swiftly towards the violent pillar of palm. The afterimage was like an all-powerful shadow blade divine light, and everywhere it passed, the material pillar of palm was actually split into two from the middle, and it slashed towards both sides. It was like a flaming sickle that cut through bamboo, and it swept through everything in its path as it went straight down. Boom! Bang! The sound of power being crushed overlapped, and it was deafening. The white tiger that was hidden within the palm was also instantly penetrated by the shadow blade. Wen Tao was shocked. In a hurry, he wanted to attack again, but the afterimage that was like a hot knife through butter had already rushed in front of him. "Is that all you've got?" Accompanied by a contemptuous and mocking voice, a face full of playfulness immediately came into Wen Tao's eyes. The latter's pupils shrank, and a feeling of extreme unease surged in his heart. There was no chance to fight back. Roar! The Qilin's roar that resounded through the sky directly invaded the minds of everyone present, and everyone only felt that their souls could not help but tremble faintly. The invisible sound wave impact all rushed towards Wen Tao. The latter's eyes widened, the aura in his body surged, and a trace of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. Wen Tao endured the pain in his body, leaped up, and flashed towards the sky. But in the next moment, a fierce palm landed solidly on his chest. Bang! A circle of condensed crimson light appeared, and Wen Tao immediately flew out. A large mouthful of blood sprayed out, and Wen Tao, who fell heavily to the ground, was dragged along the stage, and the gravel behind him collapsed and exploded inch by inch. Without waiting for the inertial impact on his body to disappear, a loud boom sounded, and Pei instantly flashed behind his opponent. The moment he landed, there seemed to be a thunderous force sweeping out. Wen Tao was once again shaken out. The violent impact from behind, together with the previous inertial force, hit him from the front and back. In an instant, many blood vessels on Wen Tao's body burst open, and his internal organs were all injured. He fell to the ground powerlessly and directly became a bloody man. At this moment, everyone in the audience only felt a chill on their backs. Pei, Chapter 1239. Bang! The violent shockwave was like a tsunami that erupted in an instant. Wen Tao fell to the ground, covered in blood. Many of his blood vessels had burst, and his internal organs were all severely injured. In an instant, everyone turned pale with fright. Their hearts trembled and chills ran down their spines. While they were shocked by Pei Ye's viciousness, they were even more shocked by the opponent's terrifying strength. Wen Tao, ranked 6th on the heavenly martial list. He couldn't even take a single move from his opponent. Shocking and terrifying. A bleak, cold wind whistled past as Pei Yi stood proudly on the platform, like a ferocious tiger or dragon that possessed a vast, imposing aura, and he emitted an extraordinary, domineering aura that was blessed by the heavens. He suppressed the entire audience, as if to announce his position as the overlord. This guy? Wang Li's eyes darkened, a trace of coldness surging in her eyes. Qiu Xingyi, who was on the Xingqing Peak viewing platform, shook his head lightly. Too ruthless. Zhao Qingkai gritted her teeth, but she couldn't bear it. In yesterday's quarterfinals, when Tao had shown mercy to her, so she was still more supportive of the other party. Although she knew that it was impossible to win against Pei Yi, she didn't expect the latter to be so ruthless. Yi Yao, Long Xuan, Zhao Qingyi and the rest also frowned, their hearts heavy. Wu Yan, who was supporting himself with a walking stick, seemed to see his previous self, a trace of helplessness flashing in his eyes. Shortly after, he turned to look at Chu Hen beside him. However, Chu Hen merely coldly stared at the stage. Within his deep eyes, there was an unfathomable meaning. Winner, West Sky Peak Courtyard Pei Yi. Elder Lu hurriedly announced the results of the competition. He hurriedly signaled 2 medical elders to check on Wen Tao's condition. At the same time, the West Dome Peak Academy erupted in cheers and cheers. Congratulations to Senior Brother Pei Yi for entering the semi-finals. Senior Brother Pei Yi is the strongest. Senior Brother Pei Yi will win. In contrast, the South Spirit Peak Courtyard was dead silent. From the Peak Courtyard Master to the ordinary disciples, all of them had a gloomy expression. This is ridiculous. To think that he could injure Senior Brother Wen Tao so badly. Don't be so smug. Let's see how long you can be happy when you meet Senior Brother Wang Li. Looking at Wen Tao being carried away, Ning Xiushui, the master of South Spirit Peak, frowned slightly and said, "This kid's character is too fierce, and his hostility is too strong." Her words were naturally for Sidhu Song to hear. The latter replied disapprovingly, "Hee youngsters, it's not too much to be a little hot-blooded. Moreover, a man must be ruthless. If you want to achieve great things, why bother with such trifles?" Ning Xiushui was a little angry, but there was nothing she could do. The battle for the top 4. In the blink of an eye, the third one was finished. Everyone who had gradually calmed down began to shift their gazes to the last 2 names on the golden light screen above the Star Pillar Peak. There's only one match left. I wonder if the Shao Alliance's Senior Brother is here? That's strange. Where did Senior Brother Shao go at this time? There were many arguments in the audience. Everyone was perplexed. Of course, except for Chu Hen. Next is the first match that was previously arranged last. Elder Lu could not continue to delay. As he spoke, he searched for Shao Alliance's figure in the crowd. Swoosh! At the same time, a figure rushed over from the direction of the West Dome Peak Courtyard. Everyone's eyes lit up. This person was the disciple who was sent to find Shao Alliance. Senior Brother Qi is back. But why is he alone? The young disciple with the surname Qi flew and landed on the viewing platform of the Star Pillar Peak. Where is he? Elder Lu asked. The young disciple wanted to whisper in his ear. However, Elder Lu waved his hand and reprimanded in a deep voice, "Lord Secmaster and the 8 Hall Masters are all here. What's the need to be sneaky about? Just say it." The young disciple's face turned pale and looked at the Lord on the highest platform in awe. "This disciple deserves to die. Please forgive me, Lord Secmaster." Dongfang Hengji raised his hand slightly. "It's all right." The disciple took a deep breath and replied in a solemn tone, "Shao Alliance is unable to participate." Wow! As soon as he said that, the audience suddenly became noisy. Unable to participate? What's going on? Everyone looked at each other, and their hearts were filled with doubt. On the contrary, Yao, Zhao Qingyi, Wu Mian, and the others' eyes lit up. In this way, Chu Hen could directly advance. What's the reason? Elder Lu continued to ask. Heavily injured on the bed. It is said that last night he was beaten half to death. These 2 simple sentences were like a boulder that had been thrown into a deep pool of water. It set off a monstrous wave. All sorts of noises rose and fell, causing waves of commotion. The West Dome Peak Lord, Sidhu Song, stood up. His eyes were filled with anger as he shouted, "Who did it?" The young disciple's body trembled and shook his head, Xiao Alliance's senior brother is very weak. I didn't have time to ask who injured him, and he fell into a coma again. But I can see that he is very afraid of that person and seems to be very scared. Beaten half to death. We still don't know who did it. In an instant, the entire Star Pillar Peak fell into chaos and speculation. What about Shun Hong and the others? Ask them, and they will definitely know. They don't seem to be here today. Oh my god, this is strange. That Chu Hen got lucky again. He can still advance to the top 4. While everyone was guessing, Yi Yao and Wu Mian were especially happy. Haha, you are really lucky. Zhao Qingyi clapped her hands. Top 4, top 4. How many years has it been? Someone from our Beichen Peak Academy has finally entered the top 4. Although it was a mistake, at least we entered. Wu Mian's eyes lit up, and he was very excited. In comparison, Chu Hen was especially calm. Long Xuan cast a questioning look at him, as if she had already guessed the situation. Chu Hen looked at her and smiled, not saying anything. Elder Lu heaved a sigh of relief and nodded in understanding. West Dome Academy's Xiao Alliance is absent due to injury and is considered to have forfeited. The winner of this match is Beichun Peak Academy, Chu Hen. Chu Hen. Bang. The words Xiao Alliance on the golden light screen shattered into thousands of pieces, and Chu Hen immediately emitted a bright light. The other 3 names were as bright as stars, shining with a dazzling radiance. Such an outcome was truly out of everyone's expectations. Even the Beichen Peak Academy's disciples couldn't help but find it funny. This is the first time I've seen someone win 2 consecutive matches without a fight. He can be considered to be in the top 4. In the eyes of the crowd, it was like a farce. However, a small number of people cast doubtful gazes at Chu Hen. He is so calm that it's suspicious. Wang Li touched her chin and murmured. Pei Ye's eyes turned cold, and a disdainful smile appeared on his face. Even Qi Qianying stared meaningfully at the young figure, who was the subject of much controversy. Her beautiful eyes roamed about as if she was thinking about something. Then, the battle for the top 4 is over. Tomorrow will be the semi-finals. Elder Lu said. However, this time, everyone present seemed to want to continue, and every single one of them seemed to be unsatisfied. It's over? It's not interesting at all. That's right. Out of 4 matches, 2 forfeits, and 1 instant win. Boring. Wang Li and Chu Hen's opponents both forfeited their matches. The gap between Wen Tao and Pei Yi was huge, and there was no entertainment to speak of. In the entire battle for the top 4, only the match between Long Xuan and Qi Qianying was enough to satisfy the audience. This was not what they wanted. There's no need to wait until tomorrow. Let's start the semi-finals today. Right at this moment, a loud and clear voice suddenly rang out from the crowd below the stage. As if it was the start of a rhythm, a chain reaction immediately broke out from the crowd. That's right, let's start. Final battle. Final battle. Continue. Continue. Their voices rang out in unison, as loud as thunder. Everyone from the 4 great peak academies had reached a unanimous decision. At this moment, even the senior elders on Xingqing Peak were looking forward to it, and even Sect Master Dongfang Hengji had no intention of leaving his seat. Elder Lu could not help but feel surprised. He waved his hand, signaling the crowd to calm down. It's not up to me to decide whether to continue or not. It depends on the wishes of the top 4 geniuses. With that, he directly threw the decision to Pei Yi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, and Chu Hen. What answered the crowd was the high fighting spirit that came from Wang Li and Pei Yi. The cheers of the audience were like a prairie fire, causing everyone's blood to boil. Elder Lu said again, "So, among the 4 of you, is there anyone who refuses to participate in the semi-finals today?" No one objected. There seemed to be a faint flame burning in the eyes of Chu Hen, Pei Yi, and the rest. Elder Lu understood. Then, he waved his hand, and a majestic righteousness swept in all directions. Chapter 1240. I hereby announce that the semi-finals of the sect battle will begin immediately. Elder Lu's aura was like a loud horn being blown on the battlefield. In an instant, the entire Star Peak was engulfed in an earth-shattering uproar. Pei, Pei, Wang Li, Wang Li. West Sky Peak Academy will win. South Spirit Peak Academy's champion. Qi Qianying. Pei Yi and Wang Li were the most popular. They were like two tides that intertwined with each other. Qi Qianying from East Profound Peak Academy was also not to be outdone. Her cheers rose and fell one after another. In comparison, Chu Hen was slightly embarrassed. Due to Yi Yao's forfeit in the quarterfinals, many people blamed him for it. Although there were some who cheered for Chu Hen, their voices were quickly drowned out by the other three academies. In the eyes of the crowd, the outcome would be the same no matter which one of the three Chu Hen met. Then, let's take a look at the details of the match. Elder Lu raised his hand and shot out a ray of light towards the golden light screen in the sky. Accompanied by a strong spatial rhythm, the four names on the light screen were like rapidly spinning lanterns, flashing back and forth, mixing with each other. The hearts of the disciples from the various peak academies were in their throats. Thousands of pairs of eyes stared at the screen, none of them daring to even breathe loudly. Buzz, there was a slight tremor in the air. The first two names were the first to be fixed on the first row. Following that, the two names on the second row also fell into a state of stillness. Semifinals. First match, Qi Qianying versus Chu Hen. Second match, Pei Yi versus Wang Li. Hua. An invisible airflow swept out in all directions, causing everyone's heartstrings to tremble faintly. Pei Yi and Wang Li could not help but look at each other from afar. It was as if there were stars bursting out from their eyes. The two people with the highest hopes of winning the championship actually met in the semifinals. While the crowd was shocked, they were also filled with anticipation. So, senior sister Qianying will have to wait for one of them in the finals. How exciting! I can't wait. Pei Yi, Wang Li, old rivals. In the last sec battle, the two of them were fighting for the championship. In the end, Wang Li won. This time, the two met again in the semifinals. It was really exciting. I'm afraid senior brother Wang Li is going to be the champion again. That's just what you think. Senior brother Pei Yi is the true king. This time, he will definitely aim for the championship. Whatever you say, senior brother Wang Li will definitely win. Senior brother Pei Yi is the strongest. Feeling the excitement of the crowd, Elder Lu smiled faintly. To be able to control the rhythm of the crowd was something to be proud of. Hee. It seems like everyone is looking forward to the second match of the semifinals. However, there must be an order to everything. Elder Lu raised his hand and pointed at Qi Qianying and Chu Hen. Then, let the first match of the semifinals begin. The one-sided support for Qi Qianying immediately erupted. Senior sister Qianying will win. Does this match even need to be played? I think it's time to advance. You can't say that. Although the opponent is weak, they still need to go through the motions. After all, Beichin Peak Academy hasn't entered the semifinals for several years. Chu Hen acted as if he did not hear the many taunts from the crowd. He lifted his gaze and looked in the direction of Qi Qianying. Big brother Chu Hen, do your best. Yi Yao cheered. Long Xuan, Zhao Qingyi, Wu Yin, and the rest also looked at him expectantly. However, just as Chu Hen was about to step onto the stage, something unexpected suddenly happened. I forfeit. A voice that was as calm as the water in an ancient well was like an incomparably ferocious heavy hammer that directly smashed the minds of everyone present into a state of chaos. Chu Hen was also stunned. He stopped in his tracks and looked at Qi Qianying again. He saw that she had no intention of stepping onto the stage and did not even have the slightest fighting spirit. The crowd did not dare to believe what they had just heard. Was it a hallucination? Qi Qianying raised her eyebrows and said calmly, I don't really want to fight this match. Let's go straight to the second match. This time, everyone heard it clearly. In an instant, all sorts of uproars were heard. Everyone spread out their hands, and their heads were full of question marks. Damn, is she poisoned? Can't we just continue with the competition? What the hell is senior sister Qianying doing? 3 matches in a row. Are all of them poisoned by Chu Hen? All sorts of curses were heard. Pei Yi and Wang Li were also surprised. Qiu Xingyi shook his head and smiled faintly. She's still so cold. She always ignores the feelings of others. Despite all sorts of discussions, Qi Qianying did not seem to care at all. Elder Lu frowned and said in a low voice, "This is the semi-finals. You're only one step away from the finals. Are you really going to give up? If you forfeit, you can only be fourth." Countless eyes stared at Qi Qianying, hoping that she would change her mind. However, she still acted like she did not care. "Fourth is pretty good. Like everyone else, I really want to watch the second match as soon as possible. To watch the second match as soon as possible. Forfeit?" In the history of the sect, Qi Qianying was probably the only one who did that. Elder Lu had no choice but to look at Ao Yunzhuang, the master of East Xian Peak. However, Ao Yunzhuang's face was filled with helplessness. As the second genius disciple after Qiu Xingyi, he had a slight understanding of Qi Qianying. She had always done things in the opposite direction and out of everyone's expectations, moreover. Her reasons would often make people speechless. However, as long as it was decided, she would not change her mind. This was definitely a character that people loved and hated at the same time. After a moment of hesitation, Ao Yunzhuang nodded slightly. Elder Lu let out a sigh and announced, "Qi Qianying of East Xian Peak School forfeits. The winner is Chu Hen of Beiqin Peak School." Without a doubt, the crowd was booed on an unprecedented scale. Countless people shook their heads. Poison. It really was poison. There had been too many surprises in this year's sect battle. No one could get used to it. It's good that she forfeited. Everyone knows who's stronger and who's weaker. That's right. We can skip the semi-finals and go straight to the finals. Senior brother Pei Yi will win. Senior brother Wang Li is the strongest. The crowd's disappointment was immediately swept away at the thought of the pinnacle battle between Wang Li and Pei Yi. It was as if they were entering the finals. In an instant, the cheers and shouts below the stage swept through the 9 heavens like a storm. Chu Hen was directly ignored by the crowd. "We've advanced to the semifinals. Why can't I feel happy at all?" Wu Mian shrugged. His conflicted look made him feel like his heart was filled with cobwebs. Wu Yin, Zhao Qingyi, and the rest looked at each other, not knowing what to say. Their teacher had said that it was understandable for Yi Yao to forfeit. However, Qi Qianying did not seem to be familiar with Chu Hen. She had publicly forfeited in the semifinals, no less. This was a little confusing. "Are you familiar with senior sister Qianying? Last year, when you asked her for the 5-leaf rain dewgrass, she ignored me no matter what. Later on, she inexplicably gave it to you. What kind of magic potion did you feed her?" Wu Mian kept asking. The speaker did not mean anything, but the listener did. Yi Yao, Long Xuan, Wu Yin, and the rest were stunned. Last year? What was going on? Chu Hen shook his head, indicating that he did not know either. There wasn't much time for them to talk. Amidst the thunderous commotion, 2 imposing figures stood proudly on the soaring cloud fighting ring, one on the east and one on the west. This scene was very familiar. Everyone felt as if they had returned to the finals of the sect battle. The Thousand Illusions Sacred Physique ranked second on the Heavenly Martial Leaderboard, and the Qilin Sacred Physique ranked third on the Heavenly Martial Leaderboard met again. It ignited the restless blood of countless people. "You've become stronger." Wang Li put away her usual laziness, and a hint of seriousness surged between her brows. "Huh." Pei Yi smiled coldly. "It seems that the finals have come in advance. But unfortunately, the main character this time is not you." Wang Li raised her brows and replied with interest, "I'm looking forward to it. I hope you won't disappoint me." Disappointed? As soon as the last 3 words fell, Wang Li instantly disappeared. Buzz, then, a ferocious undercurrent quietly surged towards Pei Yi. The latter's eyes turned cold. He turned around and punched out. Bang! With a loud sound, a violent wave of air spread out on the stage. The red scorching light and the silver illusory light swept out like a raging tsunami. The pupils of everyone in the audience trembled slightly. Soundless. Another momentum that soared to the 9 heavens. Chapter 1241. Bang! From being silent, they instantly reached the sky. Under the attention of tens of thousands of people, the battle between the two most popular candidates for the championship of the sect battle had begun. A vast amount of blazing flames mixed with illusory, soft light swept across the stage. Everyone's hearts trembled. Wang Li, who was nearly 1,000 meters away just a moment ago, suddenly appeared in the sky behind Pei. The palm that contained a majestic hidden force pressed down on his opponent like a mountain, while Pei's fist force was like a mountain, extremely fierce. The two collided head-on, directly exploding the entire arena. Crack, crack. Deep cracks quickly spread out from Pei's body, and his feet also stepped into the ground. Even so, Pei's body was as straight as a cold spear, and even his knees didn't bend in the slightest. Strange distortions appeared in the space where the two's power met. Oomph. A mocking sneer appeared on Pei's face. Your power is getting weaker and weaker. After saying that, Pei lifted his leg and heavily stomped on the ground. Boom! The violent aura surged out in the opposite direction with a rebounding force. Layers of scorching red flames burst out like a wave of fire. Bang! With an explosive sound, Wang Li, who was above, was immediately pushed back. The illusory light and shadow covering his palm and arm were also pushed back a few times. Everyone in the arena was secretly shocked. To be honest, in terms of strength alone, Pei, who was ranked third on the Sky Marshal list, was a level higher than Wang Li. After all, the Qilin's sacred body that he possessed originated from the terrifying bloodline of an ancient great beast. It contained extremely powerful destructive power. The strength of his flesh and bones was not something that ordinary people could compare to. However, Wang Li had never been someone who relied on brute force to fight. Wang Li was like a falcon soaring in the sky. He closed his palms and opened them, facing Pei below. Demon binding pivot heaven technique. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In an instant, a dozen incomparably sharp, illusory long nails pierced down. Every long nail was 3 to 4 meters long, wide at the top and narrow at the bottom, emitting a fierce aura. The giant nails were like scattered wooden stakes, stabbing into the ground beside Pei, blocking him in the middle like a railing. There were even 2 long nails that pierced through Pei's feet, firmly pinning his feet to the table. Everyone in the audience felt their hearts ache. However, Pei acted as if nothing had happened. There was not the slightest hint of pain on his face. Moreover, the sole of his foot that was pierced through did not bleed. It's an illusion. That's right, but even if it's an illusion, you'll still feel pain. Senior brother Wang Li's illusion technique is very unique. Even if the body is under the illusion technique, the injuries it brings will be brought to reality. But senior brother Pei didn't react at all. I don't know either. Looking at Pei, who was restrained by the long nails on the table, everyone present was secretly shocked. At the same time, in the sky above the Lingxiao platform, a violent surging tide was suddenly set off. Water ripples covered the sky, shaking the earth. The sky changed color, and dark clouds covered the sky. Above the dark void, a huge green water dragon suddenly swooped down. Everyone felt that the scene in front of them was a little familiar. Yang Ao. It's Yang Ao's move, someone in the crowd exclaimed in surprise. Thinking back to the battle of the top 16, when Long Xuanchuang fought against Yang Ao, the latter launched a fierce attack with this move. In the end, he was frozen into a large ice sculpture by Long Xuanchuang's 10,000-year chilly winter force. Before the crowd could react, the huge green water dragon had already rushed in front of Pei, bearing its fangs and claws. Its aura was earth-shattering. Pei's pupils reflected the ferocious dragon. The red light outside his body rose like a divine fire, and intertwining dark red light pillars gathered in front of him like python patterns. Roar! An earth-shattering roar of a fierce beast came from Pei's throat. Then, he stretched out his right palm, and the red flame lingering between his palm and arm immediately expanded and turned into a sharp giant claw that was a few meters wide. Bang! The green water dragon collided with the piercingly cold giant claw. An earth-shattering shockwave of energy spread out in all directions. Layer after layer of stone bricks and soil on the platform were blown away. Green ripples blotted out the sky and covered the earth like an exploding ocean tide, splashing hundreds of meters away. Buzz! The protective array on the 4 spectator stands was immediately activated. Waves of violent energy waves collided with the transparent and illusory light barrier around the arena, causing circular ripples to appear. Everyone in the audience widened their eyes. Although Wang Li's move was almost exactly the same as Yang Ao's, the latter's power was far superior. "Oomph! You dare to show off in front of me with a stolen move?" Pei Yi sneered, and his eyes turned cold. Bang! A muffled sound was heard, and the giant claw directly burst out a solid flame-light pillar. The tip of the light pillar was sharp, like an earth-shattering giant sword burning with flames. In the next instant, the green water dragon's huge body was pierced, and then it exploded into a sky full of water droplets. Whoosh! The earth-shattering waves of water splashed onto the platform, and the temperature in the air suddenly became extremely cold. The liquid water actually quickly froze into ice, and in the blink of an eye, the huge, soaring firmament battle ring was immediately covered in a layer of pure white snow. Crack! The sound of ice shattering rang out one after another. Giant guards with giant spears and ice shields crawled out from the ice and snow. "This is my move?" Long Xuan was stunned, and she looked at Chu Hen. Traces of surprise surged in her phoenix-like eyes. Chu Hen nodded, and a profound expression surged between his brows. In the blink of an eye, 7 or 8 giant ice giants surrounded Pei Yi. They were like divine guards guarding the heavenly palace, and they emitted an indomitable and powerful aura. Spears that were like ice pillars tore through the air, and they launched the fiercest attack towards Pei Yi, who was in the center. Pei Yi's eyes turned cold, and he put his palms together. Countless scarlet flames that lingered around his body interweaved around his arms. He slowly pulled his palms apart, and a rapidly brewing fireball quickly took shape. The fireball quickly grew larger, and spirit patterns that looked like underground magma flowed and flickered under the ball. Along with the powerful airflow that quickly surrounded the world, the fireball in front of Pei Yi also began to spin rapidly. Burning heaven jade! In an instant, a raging, blazing spiral storm spread out in all directions with Pei Yi as the center. At the same time, the attacks of the ice giants whistled down. One ice, one fire. The two opposing chaotic airflows interweaved with each other. Boom! An incomparably violent explosion resounded. The ball of fire in front of Pei, it was like a blazing sun that had exploded. The spiral flame storm swept across the soaring sky arena, and the arena surface was torn apart inch by inch. Stone fragments and dust filled the sky. One after another, the ice pillars were shattered by the impact. One by one, the ice giants were torn into pieces. The scarlet flames were like ring-shaped flying blades, and it was as if anyone who was in it would be instantly annihilated. Bang, bang. At the same time, the sturdy long nails that imprisoned Pei Yi were all sent flying, and the 2 huge nails that pierced his feet were immediately shattered into powder. Good. Senior brother Pei Yi should counterattack. The disciples of the West Sky Peak Academy clenched their fists and secretly cheered. Swish! Pei Yi, who had broken through the restraints, leaped up and directly rushed toward one of the ice giants. "You're quite good at acting." As soon as he finished speaking, Pei Yi raised his hand, and a majestic palm print furiously slammed down. Bang! With a loud explosion, the ice fragments exploded, and the ice giant exploded into thousands of pieces. And a few of the ice fragments actually floated and gathered together. Then they solidified into a human silhouette. The silhouette solidified from illusory to solid, and finally turned into Wang Li's figure. "You even discovered this." A frivolous smile appeared on Wang Li's face. But as soon as he finished speaking, Pei Yi, who was in front of him, had already disappeared. Bang! With a muffled sound, everyone's pupils suddenly shrank. The sky was filled with falling leaves, and the air was like a whirlpool. Pei Yi suddenly appeared in front of Wang Li, and his right hand that was covered in flames actually pierced through Wang Li's chest. Senior brother Wang Li? The expressions of everyone from the South Spirit Peak Academy changed. Wang Li's eyes were wide open, and his face was pale. He lowered his head and looked up at Pei Yi. "Yukunf." A cold smile bloomed on Pei Yi's face. "Can't even withstand a single blow." But as soon as he finished speaking, the painful expression on Wang Li's face was actually swept away and was replaced with a frivolous, playful expression. I'm sorry, this is also an illusion." Along with Wang Li's chuckle, the color of his body rapidly darkened. His facial features twisted and his body expanded. Then, he turned into a thick tree trunk, like a giant umbrella that suddenly opened. Lush leaves spread out in all directions, and dragon-like tree vines extended up and down the stage. In the blink of an eye, a towering ancient tree that was hundreds of feet tall appeared in front of everyone. Chapter 1242. That's the power of my tree soul. Zhao Qingkai, who was outside the arena, covered her mouth and exclaimed as she looked at the towering tree that had suddenly taken root on the Ling Shao battle arena. The gazes of Chu Hen, Wu Yin, Yi Yao, and the others also slightly narrowed as they revealed astonished expressions. From Yang Ao's green water dragon to Long Xuanshuang's ice, and now Zhao Qingcai's tree soul. They were all moves of different attributes, but Wang Li was able to display them vividly in the form of an illusion. In terms of the magnificence of the moves, it was far superior to the original. The most astonishing thing was that the other party could switch back and forth as he pleased. Thousand illusion sacred body, as expected of the top bloodline limit of the high-grade saint body. At the same time, Wang Li was worthy of being ranked second on the Heaven Martial list. Buzz! A vast and majestic aura filled the sky and earth, causing the air flow on the entire battle arena to become restless. The towering ancient tree seemed to cover the sky. The incomparably large and lush canopy was like a large umbrella that was opened. Pei Yi's palms and arms were deeply inserted into the tree trunk, and his entire body seemed to be hanging on it. Useless effort. With a cold look in his eyes, the blazing flames that lingered around his body soared into the sky. Pei Yi's arm that was inserted into the tree trunk immediately erupted with a condensed light pattern, followed by a terrifying cutting power. It was like an unbreakable giant blade of divine light. Kacha! In an instant, the entire giant tree split apart from the middle, and the rapidly expanding cracks quickly spread up and down the tree trunk. Along with the surging, blazing waves, in the blink of an eye, the towering tree was cut in half by Pei Yi's palm blade. What tyrannical power! Everyone below the arena was shocked. The power of senior brother Pei Yi's Qilin sacred body is truly terrifying. Yes, other than senior brother Wang Li, no one can fight him head-on. Indeed, Wu Yin and Wen Tao are the best examples. In terms of physical strength, the Qilin sacred body can be said to be the strongest in the entire martial sect. Boom! The violent impact caused the towering trees to split apart, but at this moment, the world suddenly fell into a gloomy state. The towering tree that had been chopped apart was twisted in a strange way, like a mass of gray clouds that had been mixed together. A dense black shadow quickly enveloped the sky above Pei Yi. Following that, the tree trunk that had exploded actually transformed into a bloody mouth filled with sharp teeth. What? Under countless shocked gazes, the giant tree had turned into a ferocious and terrifying monster. This monster did not have a fixed form, and it did not resemble other demonic beasts. It was like an unknown prehistoric beast transformed from the darkness, like a mass of demonic black fog. An extremely ferocious, devouring force erupted from the huge mouth, and Pei Yi was instantly swallowed by the dark monster under the chaotic and twisted black light. All right, as expected of senior brother Wang Li, The eyes of the South Spiritual Peak Academy disciples lit up as they revealed excited expressions. After the huge black demonic monster swallowed Pei Yi, its huge body rapidly shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. It was as if it wanted to merge together with the person in its stomach. However, in the next moment, an incomparably heavy and violent muffled sound was transmitted to everyone's ears. The black demonic monster's body suddenly emitted a scarlet flame beam. It was like the rays of the sun that pierced through the layers of dark clouds. Rumble, along with the constantly trembling platform, two huge claws covered in solid scales directly pierced through the black monster's body. The incomparably sharp claws forcefully tore apart the huge monster with the power to split the sky. Bang! The rolling waves of blazing flames were like an erupting volcano, and the mighty scarlet waves spread out from the inside out. The black demonic monster was like a cloud that had encountered the light of the sun. It was torn apart inch by inch and dissipated layer by layer. Bang! A heavy sound reverberated, and two sharp claws landed on the platform from the left and right. Under the attentive gazes of countless people that were filled with shock, an illusory Chilean beast image shockingly appeared on the high sky battle arena. Its ferocious might shook the heavens, and its domineering aura filled the air. Pei Yi was inside the Chilean beast, and his entire body seemed to be impregnable. Every inch of his body was protected by absolute defense. Come out. Pei Yi snorted coldly, and the Chilean claw on the right side suddenly lifted up and slammed heavily on the ground. Boom! The platform cracked, and rubble flew everywhere. A scarlet claw light, like a divine light that tore the earth apart, rushed forward. With a bang sound, the claw light bombarded a cloud of black fog in front of it. In an instant, the black fog immediately burst into a chaotic cyclone. Buzz! The rampant cyclone swirled around the high firmament battle platform and scattered around Pei Yi. A strange power quietly rose, and 6 human silhouettes quietly formed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Could this be Senior Sister Qian Ying's doppelganger technique? Oh my God! Everyone's moves have been learned by Senior Brother Wang Li. When the audience saw the 6 Wang Lis that appeared, they couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. Although it was only created by Wang Li with an illusion, and there was a huge difference in essence, this kind of illusion was enough to achieve the level of passing off the fake as the real one. The 6 Wang Li stood around Pei Yi. Pei Yi, who was in the Chilean Phantom, sneered, "Humph, you have a lot of tricks, but none of them caught my eye, whoosh." As soon as he said that, the air of heaven and earth rotated, and a strong and cold aura swept in all directions. Immediately afterward, a Tai Chi Yin-Yang 8 trigram array spread out under Pei Yi. The hearts of everyone in the audience trembled. Yi Yao, who was standing with Chu Hen and the others, was also stunned. It was not Qi Qianying's move. It was Yi Yao's. Before everyone could react, the 6 Wang Li, who were standing on the edge of the Tai Chi Yin-Yang array, raised their palms at the same time. An astonishing energy rhythm rapidly condensed. Their palms faced each other, and strands of blue light overflowed from their palms and quickly gathered towards the center of their palms. Pure and vigorous energy was compressed into a ball. The dazzling light overshadowed the world. In the blink of an eye, a rhombus-shaped energy crystal of about 30 centimeters in length appeared in the palms of each Wang Li's hands. Colorful light flowed, and divine light surrounded them. The shocking scene that Yi Yao had displayed before was once again reproduced by Wang Li in the form of an illusion. However, the real scene in front of them and the powerful aura made them wonder if it was an illusion. It was so real that it was terrifying. 6-fold star chest seal. Wang Li spat out a few words clearly. Then, she flipped her palms outward, and the 6 magnificent star jades set off an extremely strong and cold murderous force from different directions, exploding towards Pei Yi in the middle. It was like a 10,000-year-old shooting arrow that streaked across the sky. Wherever it went, the air was torn apart, and the ground split open into 6 deep ravines. In the process of moving, the 6 magnificent star jades became extremely sharp, so sharp that they were like divine rays. It looked almost no different from the North Star art that Yi Yao had displayed. Even the aura was almost exactly the same. If it was anyone else, they would probably not be able to help but treat it as a real magnificent star jade, and not an illusion. Pei Ye's pupils shrank slightly, and traces of ruthlessness flashed in his eyes. I don't care if it's real or fake. Don't even think about breaking my defense. The Qilin beast shadow that enveloped his body shone brilliantly, and a lava-like spirit pattern appeared on its body. Its huge claws furiously lifted up, and a rapidly spinning storm vortex erupted from Pei Ye's body. Boom! It was earth-shattering, and its momentum pierced through the sky. The 6 light beams were like divine swords, and they launched a violent and terrifying collision with the raging red storm. In an instant, the red wave and the blue light beam intertwined and shot into the sky. The entire numinous sky fighting platform shook, and the entire place exploded. The layers of broken stone bricks were all turned into powder, and the aftermath of the raging power swept across the protective light screen below the platform. Circles of rippling halos splashed out. Even with the protection of the protective shield, there were still countless people below the platform who were shaken by the violent cyclone. Their blood boiled, and they could not stand steadily. Everyone's eyes widened, and their hearts trembled. Even the many high-level elders and masters of the peak courtyard on Xingqing Peak were amazed. The Qilin divine body is extraordinary domineering, while the Thousand Illusion sacred body is unpredictable. It's really hard to tell who's stronger. Dongxin Peak Master, Ao Yunzhuang, sighed softly. Ning Xiushui, the South Spirit Peak Master, and Sidu Song, the West Dome Peak Master, looked solemn. Would Wang Li be the champion? Or would Pei Yi be aiming for the throne? Even they could not come to a conclusion for the time being. The violent storm swept across the entire platform, and everyone below the platform did not even dare to blink, afraid that they would miss something. After a series of violent clashes, Wang Li's doppelgangers were all destroyed, leaving only his main body hovering in the air. Meanwhile, the Qilin silhouette outside Pei Ye's body became extremely ethereal like a thin layer of gauze. It seemed like it would shatter with a light touch. These two people are really too powerful. It's hard to tell who's stronger. However, based on the current situation, Senior Brother Wang Li's situation might be a little awkward. Yes, I think so too. Senior Brother Wang Li's illusion technique is very spectacular. It almost covers the entire area. If this goes on, his physical strength will be greatly consumed. Although powerhouses at the Ancient Eternity stage could condense a saint's soul in their true origin purple palace that could continuously produce true origin energy, the power produced by the saint soul would gradually be unable to keep up with the pace if it was continuously consumed in a large area, of course. The power that Pei Yi unleashed was no less than Wang Li's. However, the former Qilin sacred body had the upper hand in terms of strength. If they continued to compete in strength, the Thousand Illusion sacred body would not be able to compete with the Qilin sacred body in the later stages. Just as the people below the platform were whispering to each other, an obscure wave of energy emitted from Wang Li's body. Following that, a layer of illusory white halo quietly appeared outside his body. The halo enveloped his body like a bubble, and beautiful, mysterious runes flowed and flickered outside the halo. What was even more shocking was that the strange halo was actually solidifying at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the aura it emitted was gradually stabilizing and becoming stronger. Chapter 1243. That's South Spiritual Art? A trembling voice came from the crowd. In an instant, the entire audience was in an uproar. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the sky above the high heaven platform. The illusory white halo was like a circular light shield, enveloping Wang Li's body. Brilliant rays of light that looked like divine patterns flowed and flickered around the halo. Waves of strange power gradually became stronger. At the same time, The halo around Wang Li's body became more and more solid, and the swaying light patterns on it actually turned into a dark red color. The blazing heat wave spread out, but it also contained a bit of the aura of Pei Ye's Qilin's sacred body. Pei Yi, who was in the huge Qilin shadow, narrowed his eyes and raised the corners of his mouth, forming a cold arc. You're finally willing to use the South spiritual art. I almost thought you weren't going to use it. You're wrong again. Wang Li raised her eyebrows slightly, and a hint of pride appeared in her eyes. From the beginning, I've been using the South spiritual art. What? Everyone in the audience was startled. As his voice fell, the white halo around Wang Li's body suddenly shone brightly, and an extremely powerful force filled the air. Countless scarlet-red light patterns revolved around the ring of light, and in an instant, the white ring of light actually turned into a flame-like red. Under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the space around Wang Li distorted violently, and tens of thousands of flames danced between the heavens and the earth like a rain. Every inch of the halo that enveloped Wang Li seemed to contain the most violent and destructive power. The mountain-like pressure shook the entire audience. This is? Looking at the dragon-like crimson light patterns around Wang Li's body, everyone's faces were filled with shock. Senior brother Pei Ye's power? To be precise, it's the power that was broken down by the South spiritual art and reintegrated. Oh my God, isn't this too abnormal? Feeling the powerful power fluctuation on Wang Li's body, Chu Hen's eyes also surged with a trace of surprise. This is the power that has been transformed by the South spiritual art. Wu Yan, who was at the side, saw the doubt in Chu Hen and the others, and immediately explained. Convert. The people around him were stunned. Wu Yan nodded solemnly. The Southern spiritual spell is a supreme martial art that is both offensive and defensive. Its most miraculous feature is that it can decompose an opponent's attack. The power that is decomposed will condense on the surface and form a spherical energy ring. The more power that is decomposed, the more powerful the energy ring will be. This power can be used for both offense and defense. It can even be fused with one's true inner force to form a higher level of attack. After listening to Wu Yan's explanation, everyone couldn't help but feel enlightened. In other words, the further we go, the more energy the Southern spiritual art decomposes, the stronger the energy it fuses. Zhao Qingyi asked in a low voice. Yes, Wu Yan affirmed. Therefore, when dealing with someone who has mastered this Southern spiritual incantation, you can't give him too much power. Otherwise, you will be the one embarrassed in the end. The best way is to end the battle quickly. The Southern spiritual art's powerful disintegration ability could be said to be stronger the further one progressed. This also happened to make up for the deficiency of the Thousand Illusion Holy Body in the later stage of the Qilin Holy Body. However, what was unexpected was that from the beginning, Wang Li had already used his powerful illusion power as a cover and secretly activated the Southern spiritual art. In other words, the opponent had been continuously decomposing and fusing Pei Ye's energy attacks. Everyone couldn't help but have an epiphany. No wonder Wang Li was so wantonly squandering his true inner force, layer after layer, continuously creating all kinds of gorgeous and spectacular illusion attacks. The main reason was to allow Pei Yi to continuously explode with powerful attacks and continuously transfer his own energy to the Southern spiritual art to decompose. So that's how it is. Qiu Xingyi, who was on Xingqing Peak, nodded his head. There was a hint of approval in between his handsome brows. What a great diversion, crossing the sea by deceiving everyone. As expected of Senior Wang Li, we were all kept in the dark. After decomposing so much energy, he will definitely win. Haha, Senior Wang Li will definitely win. After coming to a realization, everyone could be said to be full of admiration for Wang Li. A series of gorgeous illusion attacks turned out to be just a cover for the Southern spiritual art. Buzz buzz. Restless, majestic auras intertwined and collided with each other in the void. The spherical halo that lingered around Wang Li's body was as dazzling as the sun. He looked at Pei Yi below. the corner of his mouth slightly raised, and he said, "It seems that you have miscalculated again." "Heh." Pei Yi smiled coldly, and a cold light burst out from his eyes. "It is indeed a little unexpected, but you are laughing too early. You have the southern spiritual art. Do you think I don't have it too?" Rumble. In an instant, the 9 heavens changed, and the wind and clouds surged. Pei Yi raised one hand to the sky, and an unprecedented, monstrous, and terrifying aura suddenly rose from his body. In the sky above the Lingxiao platform, where dark clouds rolled, an incomparably dazzling golden light suddenly burst out from the vast nebula. Everyone's pupils constricted to the size of a needle tip. Every face was as bright as a piece of white paper under the light. The unshakable destructive power poured down, and thousands of large light pillars that were like divine light, heavenly swords pierced the sky. Heaven's Blade, Western Sky Technique. Heaven's Blade. The heavy voice was like thunder, shaking everyone's heart. The earth-shattering divine light pillars tore the sky apart, and with the power to break the sky, they directly covered the entire Lingxiao platform. High up in the sky, Wang Li's eyes turned cold. He put his palms together, and the red spherical halo that lingered around him immediately burst out and expanded rapidly. Southern Sky Transformation. Southern Spiritual Art. Southern Sky Transformation. Buzz. The spherical halo that expanded by several times was like a rapidly enlarging star, and the red flame that constantly leaked out was like a nebula halo. Boundless rich radiance blossomed from all sides. Boom! Bang! A series of violent forces arrived, and the nebula collided. The incomparably spectacular scene was like a divine punishment from the heavens, bombarding the stars and meteorites. It covered the sky and the earth, destroying the universe. In an instant, the entire Lingxiao platform seemed to be hit by a heavenly sword. Countless rocks collapsed, and cracks burst out. The protective light curtains under the stage were constantly being hit by fierce attacks, and numerous cracks appeared on them. Everyone outside the platform clenched their fists. They were frightened, and they didn't even dare to breathe. In the blink of an eye, the huge Lingxiao platform was already riddled with holes, like a beehive, and not a single intact brick could be found. If this wasn't a specially made platform, it would probably have been smashed into pieces. Even so, the entire battle platform was directly destroyed beyond recognition. Meanwhile, in the sky, where Wang Li was, the huge ball-shaped energy body emitted an extremely uneasy turbulence after withstanding the violent impact. The light patterns on its surface flickered, and its aura was extremely chaotic. He blocked it. Everyone below the platform had solemn expressions, and they were extremely surprised. Strange, why didn't Senior Brother Pei Yi gather the power that erupted from the West Sky Technique? If he gathered it at a single point, Senior Brother Wang Li definitely wouldn't be able to block it so easily. It's very simple, because what we're seeing now might be an illusion created by Senior Brother Wang Li. I understand now. The reason why Senior Brother Pei Yi covered the entire platform with the West Sky Technique is to prevent people from being deceived by the illusion. The boundary of Wang Li's 1,000 illusion sacred physique was unpredictable. It was difficult to distinguish what was real from what was fake. If Wang Li in the sky was formed by an illusion, then Pei Yi would have wasted the West Sky Technique's powerful killer move for nothing. Moreover, he had spread the West Sky Technique's power out and covered the entire platform. So no matter where Wang Li hid, he wouldn't be able to escape the attack of the Heaven's Blade, of course. The West Sky Technique's power had spread out, and its range had expanded. At the same time, its lethality had also been distributed. So it couldn't break through Wang Li's defense with a single attack. Just at this moment, an incomparably heavy and earth-shattering sound reverberated through the sky. The huge energy sphere that was floating in the sky had directly exploded from its center. It was like a nebula vortex had exploded, and all sorts of chaotic and powerful energy shot out wantonly. Everyone below the platform calmed down, and even the Academy Masters couldn't help but reveal cautious expressions. Wang Li stood in the air and looked down at Pei Yi with admiration. I have to say, you really amaze me. But it's a pity that you'll still lose in the end. As soon as he finished speaking, a transcendent aura that was several times stronger than before spread out from Wang Li's body, and the chaotic and majestic energy that leaked out gathered in front of him. Like a whale sucking in water, in an instant, a solid white halo appeared around his body again. Everyone was shocked again and again. Even the West Sky Peak Master, Sidhu Song, couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Chapter 1244, Ancient Realm, Rank 9. Feeling the powerful aura emanating from Wang Li, the expressions of everyone inside and outside of Xingqing Peak changed drastically. The masters of the 4 peak academies all had solemn looks on their faces, but they all had different expressions. The biggest contrast was the South Spirit Peak Master Ning Qiushui and the West Sky Peak Master Sidhu Song. This was a battle that would decide who would be the champion. It was hard for anyone to remain calm. The eyes of everyone from the South Spirit Peak Academy flashed with excitement, as if victory was already in sight. Rank 9 Ancient Realm, Senior Brother Wang Li is indeed the #1 genius of our South Spirit Peak Academy. He's going to win. Senior Brother Wang Li is the champion. In comparison, the expressions of the West Sky Peak disciples were gloomy and uneasy. Above the void, the chaotic energy that filled the sky and earth converged towards Wang Li's body like 100 rivers flowing into the sea. Outside his body, a solidified white spherical halo appeared once again. Wang Li looked down at Pei Yi indifferently. His palms faced each other, and a steady stream of majestic energy fused together. This time, I'm disintegrating the power of the West Sky technique. His slightly high-pitched voice was filled with pride. The powerful aura of a rank 9 ancient realm was like a mountain. Don't celebrate too early. At the same time, the qilin that shrouded Pei Yi immediately became real. Its sturdy body, huge claws, and dense scales were especially exquisite. Roar! The low roar contained an innate, noble majesty. At this moment, everyone only felt that a living qilin had appeared between heaven and earth. Blazing flames rose, and the scorching air wave caused the surrounding space to faintly distort. It was obvious. Pei Yi did not intend to give up. 2 powerful auras collided in the air. The invisible pressure made everyone feel as if they were shouldering a heavy burden. Wang Li's eyes turned cold, and the violent energy between his palms was as fierce as the undercurrent of the deep sea. Let's end it here. Divine Spirit Seal. Buzz. The rapid trembling of the airflow caused the space to feel uneasy. In an instant, a white pillar of light pierced through the sky like a world-destroying divine light, directly slashing down towards Pei Yi below. A strong gust of wind. Chaotic cyclones disturbed the air. As it moved, the white beam of light rapidly expanded, instantly turning into a blade of light that was thousands of feet long. Circles of flowing light patterns revolved around it, displaying a destructive power. This attack was an explosive attack that had been dissected from the West Sky art and fused with Wang Li's own true origin energy. Everyone could feel the terrifying godly might that pierced through heaven and earth. Pei Yi, who was below, felt as if he was facing a meteor that was falling from the heavens. However, a scorching flame danced in his eyes. Roar! The ferocious qilin beast that shrouded him suddenly set off scorching flames that soared into the sky. It flew up like an ancient ferocious beast facing the punishment of the heavens, and rushed out fearlessly. Hiss! An unprecedented violent explosion spread between heaven and earth, and the 2 most violent forces collided head-on in the sky above the high heaven platform. In an instant, it was as if 2 meteorites had collided in the sky above the battle platform. For a moment, the flaming storm that engulfed the heavens and the earth was mixed with the incomparably majestic halo, and it immediately spread in all directions. Boom! Bang! It was as if a storm had arrived, and lightning had converged. At this moment, the spectating platforms around the entire stellar peak trembled, and the high sky combat platform within it even shook intensely and uneasily. The platform, which was already riddled with holes, suddenly seemed to have encountered a volcanic tsunami. Rumble, with a series of violent explosions, the huge high heaven battle platform directly broke from the middle, splitting into two. Numerous cracks and faults continued to stack up, and the entire arena directly exploded. The surrounding defensive shield was covered with cracks, like broken ice crystal glass, which made people worry that it would collapse at any time. The entire inner area of the high heaven battle platform had completely fallen into a hurricane's circle of power. The behemoth-like flame Qilin and the giant pillar of light that exuded a destructive power constantly bloomed layers of violent shock waves like infinitely expanding water ripples. It wantonly rushed in all directions. The most tense moment made people restless. Other than sect master Dongfang Hengji, almost all of the higher-ups and elders stood up and watched intently. Xiao Xingyi, Qi Qianying, Chu Hen, Wu Yan, and the other geniuses all had solemn expressions on their faces. Who would win? Everyone's eyes were fixed on the sky in front of them. And just when most people thought that Wang Li was about to suppress it, Pei Ye's aura suddenly multiplied, and scarlet light pillars soared into the sky. Humph. Do you think that you're the only one who broke through to the ninth order of the eternal realm? As soon as these words came out, everyone's heartstrings couldn't help but tremble. Roar! Along with a roar that shook the heavens, the ferocious Qilin suddenly opened its huge mouth, and then a huge golden ball of light shot out. The golden ball of light that contained extremely pure and powerful energy burst out in the form of a shockwave. Bang! An earth-shaking explosion resounded, and the giant light pillar that was formed from the Western Sky Technique's power directly exploded, collapsing between heaven and earth. What? All the South Spirit Peak Academy's disciples' hearts sank. The majestic, golden-colored energy ball pierced through the air. It easily penetrated the layers of energy vortexes and directly charged in front of Wang Li. The latter's pupils shrank, and her face turned pale. Boom! The golden shock wave exploded in front of the opponent, and a vast and violent chaotic wave of air covered the sky, spreading under the sky. The violent shock wave continued to spread out, and Wang Li fluttered in the sky like a goose feather. At this moment, the entire world seemed to have fallen into a state of deathly stillness. Wang Li held her chest with one hand, and blood continuously flowed out from the corner of her mouth. Frost and dust filled the sky like a misty rain. Every single audience member who supported Wang Li felt their hearts sink to the bottom of the valley. Ha! Looks like the one who lost is you. A cold laughter quietly spread out, and everyone's heart trembled once again. Wang Li's pupils shrank, and her sharp pupils reflected a cold and emotionless face. A disdainful and mocking smile appeared on the other party's face. Bang! Another heavy sound rang out, and a brilliant scarlet light rippled out in the sky. In an instant, Wang Li directly turned into a beam of light and flew down. Bang! Chapter 1245. Bang! A heavy sound reverberated on the left side of the broken battle stage, shaking the hearts of everyone present. Rocks flew everywhere, and the cold wind whistled. At this moment, the originally majestic high sky battle stage was already in a mess. There wasn't a single intact brick on the entire stage. The ground was full of holes and potholes. Between heaven and earth, there was a scorching cyclone wave, and the sky was filled with dust. The inside and outside of Star Peak fell into silence. The South Spirit Peak Academy disciples stared at the stage in front of them. Peak Master Ning Qiushui's eyes also faintly glowed a little. Although she didn't want to believe it, it seemed to be a foregone conclusion. High up in the sky, Pei Yi stood there alone. His expression was indifferent, and his body exuded a unique and domineering aura. On the broken left side of the battle stage, the dissipating dust gradually dissipated, and a gloomy young figure stood there. Their positions were like a high and mighty monarch and a king standing under the main hall. Senior brother Wang Li? The eyes of the South Spirit Peak Academy disciples trembled. Although there was still a trace of hope in their eyes, it was undeniable that they had never seen such a desolate Wang Li before. His usual laziness, carelessness, and cynicism were all gone. His pale face and eyes were filled with unwillingness and powerlessness. Subsequently, Wang Li's body trembled violently. Wah! A mouthful of fresh blood spurted out from his mouth. His legs staggered, and he fell to the ground on one knee. Senior brother Wang Li. A few of the South Spirit Peak Academy disciples were shocked as they hurriedly flew onto the stage to help the other party up. And at this moment, it also announced Wang Li's defeat. Wang Li lost. The Thousand Illusions Saint Physique, who was ranked second on the Sky Martial list, lost to the Qilin Saint Physique, who was ranked third. The champion of the previous sect battle was finally unable to win 2 consecutive sect battles. The feeling of loss was like the rising tide, quickly spreading throughout the entire South Spirit Peak Academy. The West Sky Peak Academy's side gradually became excited, and each of them revealed a look of excitement. Senior Brother Pei Yi won. Congratulations, Senior Brother Pei Yi. West Sky Peak Academy will win. One side was melancholy, while the other side was excited. The winner was King, and the loser was Bandit. At this moment, Pei Yi and Wang Li became the clearest contrast. Congratulations, Peak Leader Situ. The chief disciple of the West Sky Peak Academy really lives up to his reputation. On the side of Xingqing Peak, there were already many higher-ups and elders that had started to congratulate Situ Song. The latter had a beaming smile on his face, and the space between his brows was filled with pride and complacency. Apart from mysterious East Peak Master A.O. Yun Manor, South Spirit Peak Master and North Star Peak Master had ugly expressions on their faces. Wu Yin and Wang Li, the top disciples of the 2 great peak academies, had both lost to Pei Yi. How could they be happy? Senior Brother Pei Yi is really strong. He defeated Wu Yin, Wen Tao, Wang Li, and many other top disciples. He's definitely aiming for the championship. I finally got what I wanted. Amidst the jubilant clamor, Pei Yi was like a bright moon held up by the stars. He looked down at Wang Li from above. This time, you will kneel before me. His mocking voice contained a lot of sarcasm. Wang Li's hands trembled as she clenched her fists. The unwillingness in her eyes finally dissipated. Her internal organs were all injured, and she was unable to fight anymore. Several South Spirit Peak Academy disciples had gloomy expressions. However, they did not dare to say anything. They could only help Wang Li back to the arena. Buzz, buzz. Waves of obscure energy ripples spread out in the world, and the 2 halves of the soaring firmament battle platform slowly fused together. The shattered stone bricks and mud also gathered from all directions, quickly filling up the potholes on the platform. The arena for the sect battle was specially built. This high-sky battle platform was a floating platform created with a heaven and earth integration array as the foundation. No matter how badly it was destroyed, it could be restored to its original state. Hundreds of millions of stones merged together in an orderly manner, like a gathering of tens of thousands of meteorites. In next to no time, a grand and flat arena appeared once more before everyone's eyes. However, at this moment, there was only one person left on the high sky battle platform. Senior Brother Pei Yi, champion. Years of sharpening a sword, vowing to seize the monarch's throne, West Sky Peak Academy is the strongest. Tens of thousands of people watched. The momentum was monstrous. In everyone's eyes, Pei Yi had already reached the peak of this sect battle. Elder Liu, who was the host of the competition, nodded his head in approval. He then announced loudly, "First of all, congratulations to West Sky Peak Academy's Pei Yi for being ranked second on the Heavenly Martial list. Hua." The entire arena was filled with celebration. All sorts of cheers could be heard. Wu Yin, Zhao Qingyi, Yi Yao, and the rest all secretly shook their heads. Although they did not like Pei Yi, they had to admit that he was indeed very strong. Then, Elder Liu's gaze turned towards the southern viewing platform. However, at this moment, a majestic aura, along with a raging battle intent, suddenly spread out in the sky above the high sky battle platform. Everyone's heart jumped. Qiuxing, the three words that were as heavy as thunder, directly impacted everyone's eardrums. Pei Ye's gaze was like a sword as he raised his finger and pointed towards the extraordinary young figure on top of the star peak. If you don't wait now, then when? You, how dare you fight me? Boom! There seemed to be thunder crisscrossing between heaven and earth, and the rapid airflow was like a whirlwind that whistled through the entire arena. In an instant, everyone's eyes were all fixed on Qiuxing's position. First on the heavenly martial list. No one could have imagined it. Elder Lu was taken aback. After a brief moment of shock, the situation instantly went out of control. Everyone in the arena shouted loudly, "Qiuxing, accept the challenge. Qiuxing, accept the challenge." The fiery atmosphere directly exploded, and the atmosphere of the sect battle was directly pushed to an unprecedented height. The 8 Peak Academy lords were all stunned. Even sect master Dongfang Hengji's eyes flashed with a touch of light. Second on the heavenly martial list. It was far from satisfying Pei Ye's ambition. Defeating Wang Li was also not his goal. The position that Pei Ye really wanted to replace was there. "Qiuxing, do you dare to fight?" Pei Ye once again provoked. The sky was filled with cheers, like a storm. "Qiuxing, Qiuxing, Pei Ye, Pei Ye." The supporters of both sides set off waves after waves of monstrous voices. Qi Qinying, Wu Yin, and the injured Wang Li all looked cautiously at the young figure on the Xingqing Peak. Everyone's heart was in their throats. At this moment, everyone had forgotten the existence of another person. All of them had forgotten that it was not the final of the sect battle that had just ended. In Pei Ye's eyes, at this moment, except for Qiuxing, no one else could enter his eyes. Everyone else was ignored. At this moment, Elder Lu also acquiesced to the current situation and gave full control of the stage to Pei Ye and Qiuxing. Everyone's attention, the heart of the storm. Looking at Pei Ye's provocative eyes that were full of fighting spirit, Qiuxing's handsome eyebrows slightly raised, and the corner of his mouth raised into a proud arc immediately. He slowly took a step forward. In an instant, everyone's heart seemed to be about to jump out of their chests. Everyone's eyes were shining brightly, and they were extremely excited. However, just at this moment, a heavy and shocking explosion reverberated from the soaring heaven arena without any warning. Everyone's heart skipped a beat. A long spear flickering with dark blue lightning bolts fell diagonally on the ring. It was an incomparably sharp spear with a dragon-like spine in the middle. Fierce lightning flowed up and down, emitting a cold aura. The tip of the spear pierced the stone tiles on the ground, and deep cracks spread out like a spider web. What was going on? This scene caused everyone a frown. When they saw the spear on the ring, the expressions of Yi Yao and Long Xuan changed. At the same time, Wu Yin, Zhao Qingyi, and the others suddenly realized that Chu Hen, who had been standing beside them, had disappeared. Buzz. Waves of air spread out from the high heaven battle ring like ripples on the water surface. A slightly thin and slender figure quietly stepped onto the high heaven battle ring. With every step he took, a slight airflow rippled in the air. Everyone's eyes were filled with confusion. Even the 8 Peak Courtyard Masters had a serious look on their faces. The figure walked to the center of the high heaven battle ring and raised his deep eyes. 2 rays of cold light swept directly towards Pei Ye in the air. "Your opponent is me. Opponent. It's me." There was no emotion in the indifferent tone, but the arrogant expression on his face did not hide the provocation. Whoosh! What followed was an uproar and a lot of cursing from the audience. "What's going on? Do you think you're qualified to fight? Trash that relies on women to advance. Why are you causing trouble here? Get down. Get down. Don't waste everyone's time here." No one would have thought that just as Qiuxing took his first step, a cold spear would suddenly pierce through the stage. Even more so, no one would have thought that Chu Hen, who was almost forgotten by everyone, would step onto the soaring cloud arena in such a manner. Without a doubt, Chu Hen's actions had directly aroused the anger of everyone present. "Bastard! Why are you trying to show your presence? Why aren't you going down? We want to see the pinnacle battle between Qiu Xingyi and senior brother Pei Yi. Are you King stupid? Get out of here. The eyes of the disciples of the East Profound Peak Courtyard and the West Sky Peak Courtyard were red with anger. They could not wait to rush onto the stage and kick Chu Hen out. Even the people of the Beichin Peak Courtyard shook their heads. This guy is hopeless. Doesn't he know how he got into the finals? He's so troublesome. What is this Chu Hen doing? Wu Mian was also so angry that he kept stomping his feet under the stage. Wu Yin sighed softly. Previously, he had clearly reminded Chu Hen that if he encountered Pei Yi, he should not fight him. Just a moment ago, he was still secretly rejoicing that Pei Yi had found Qiu Xingyi and ignored Chu Hen. However, he never would have thought that Chu Hen would actually appear at this time. Not only would he arouse public anger, but he would also humiliate himself. However, Yi Yao and Long Xuan did not seem to think too much about it. The two girls only looked at the stage silently. Seeing that the situation was getting out of control, Elder Lu could not help but feel a little embarrassed. He opened his mouth and said, Beichin Peak Courtyard's Chu Hen, please, I entered the finals, so I have the right to fight for the championship, right? Chu Hen replied indifferently. Elder Lu was instantly speechless. Although he said that in the eyes of the crowd, he was not worthy of being in the finals at all. Haha, the disciples of the Beichin Peak Courtyard are really interesting. The West Sky Peak Master, Situ Song, laughed lightly. Yuan Shang's face darkened. He originally thought that the Beichin Peak Courtyard was no longer involved, but in the end, he was ridiculed because of Chu Hen. It was really unpleasant. In addition to being annoyed, he also found Chu Hen more and more unpleasant to the eye. You want to die so badly? A disdainful smile unfolded on Pei Ye's face as he looked at Chu Hen below, as if he was looking at an ant. I originally intended to let you go, but I didn't expect you to not know how to appreciate favors. It truly makes me very unhappy. A cold intent accompanied by a powerful pressure assaulted down. The bricks under Chu Hen's body split open. However, Chu Hen's legs did not bend at all, and he replied with a light gaze. But I don't want to let you go, whoosh. Another wave of curses resounded below the stage. I've really never seen such a shameless thing. He relied on a woman to advance, and still dares to speak so arrogantly. Senior brother Pei Yi, cripple him. That's right, let him know how high the heavens are. Chu Hen seemed as if he did not hear the curses below the stage, and he still stared coldly at Pei Yi. As you wish. Ha ha. Pei Yi laughed instead of getting angry, and then a ghastly light erupted from his eyes while his tone was piercingly cold. As you wish. OM. The airflow suddenly trembled, and Pei Yi instantly vanished on the spot. In the next moment, an extremely ferocious gale assaulted Chu Hen from behind. You could die now. An icy cold voice resounded, and then Pei Ye's heavy leg swept towards Chu Hen's head. A vortex whistled while a scarlet light revolved around it. This strike contained the might of a thunderbolt. Everyone below the stage seemed to have already seen Chu Hen die on the spot. Many people felt that their anger had been vented. However, just when Pei Ye's steel-like leg was about to strike Chu Hen's head, Chu Hen somersaulted in midair and dodged it. He dodged. Everyone was stunned. Subsequently, Chu Hen, who'd somersaulted in midair, directly swept his heavy leg against Pei Ye's shoulder. Bang! A loud explosion resounded, and a wave of energy shot into the sky while rocks shattered. The pupils of everyone present trembled violently. A scene that had never happened in their wildest dreams struck their optic nerves. A powerful circle of black light surged out from the platform, and it traversed through the crater that was dozens of meters deep. Pei Yi smashed heavily onto the ground and smashed deep into the platform. Chapter 1246. Boom! A violent and vigorous circle of light swept out in all directions like a wave on the surface of the water. The soaring sky fighting platform, which had just been restored for a short while, once again sank into a deep pit that was tens of meters wide. Bricks and stones exploded, and a shockwave soared into the sky. along with every pair of trembling pupils in the audience. Pei Yi heavily crashed into the ground from mid-air, as if deeply embedded into the platform. What? Rumble. The appearance of this scene directly impacted the hearts of everyone present like a storm, and an earth-shattering thunder sounded in their minds. Even their souls could not help but throb. Oh my God! Countless martial ancestor sect disciples widened their eyes and covered their faces with their hands. The West Dome Peak Master Situ Song and the North Star Peak Master Yuan Shang suddenly stood up. One was shocked and furious. The other was shocked. Qiu Xingyi, Qi Qianying, Wang Li, Wu Yin, and all the other martial ancestor sect geniuses were completely stunned. This guy, Wu Mian's hands unconsciously trembled. Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai beside him were also similar, as if they had witnessed the most terrifying scene. Rubble crumbled and cracks spread. The invisible sharp aura was like the cold spear standing on the other side of the soaring sky platform. Bang! A heavy sound rang out once again, and Chu Hen heavily landed on the ground. It was as if he had been crushed by a force of 10,000 caddies. The ferocious and powerful impact lifted the sky, and Pei Yi, who had smashed into the ground, was directly jolted out. There was no hesitation. There was no time for the audience to recover. Chu Hen turned sideways and raised his leg, once again kicking towards Pei Ye's chest. Pei Ye's pupils constricted, and he crossed his arms in front of him. A powerful flame-like, true origin energy rose from his body, and his crossed arms were immediately covered with a layer of raging flames. Get lost! He shouted in a stern voice. Bang! As soon as his voice fell, a circle of scarlet flames mixed with a dense black glow spread out vertically on the platform. Even though Pei Ye's strength was fierce and domineering, he was still sent flying by Chu Hen's kick. Oh my God! Everyone was shocked again and again, and their expressions changed again and again. Pei Yi, who was sent flying, dragged his feet along the surface of the table. The stone tiles under his feet continuously exploded, and he dragged out a ravine that was nearly 100 meters long before he finally stopped. You? Pei Ye's eyes widened in anger as he stared in astonishment at the young figure who hadn't moved a single step. Chu Hen raised his head, and the outline of his handsome face revealed a heart-shaking ruthlessness. Chi-chi! A mass of violent, dark blue lightning streaked out from Chu Hen's right palm, and the dazzling lightning quickly gathered in the center of his palm. He stared coldly at Pei Yi. A monstrous king's domineering aura shook the entire audience. Pei Qingfeng, I'm going to skin you alive today. The sound was like thunder, striking straight into the soul. At this moment, Chu Hen stunned the world. The martial arts sect disciples who had scolded him earlier could not help but tremble. His words didn't seem to be directed at Pei Yi alone. Everyone from Beichin Peak Academy also shut their mouths, and their eyes were filled with many emotions. Qi Qianying, who was below the stage, could not help but be stunned as she felt the hostility from Chu Hen's body. Her eyes were filled with a complicated look. It seemed like her forfeiting in the semifinals was not a mistake. On the high cloud arena, their gazes were like sharp arrows, filled with cold light. The corner of Pei Ye's mouth drew back, revealing a ruthless smile. Not bad. It's a little more interesting than I imagined. Humph. Chu Hen replied with a cold smile. See you in the finals. You didn't disappoint me either. Chi-chi, after saying that, Chu Hen reached out with one palm to the ground, and dozens of majestic dark blue lightnings streaked along the surface of the stage like dragons and snakes towards his opponent at an extremely fast speed. Everywhere they went, the floor tiles exploded and the stone platform collapsed. Pei Ye's eyes turned cold, and killing intent surged his eyes. Arrogant to the extreme. Roar. A resonant and impassioned beast roar shook the surroundings. Pei Ye's already robust body became tall and sturdy once more. The blood vessels on his arms bulged, and his 5 fingers became sharp and sharp. Moreover, dense and thick crimson scales appeared on his body, making him look like 2 Qilin arms, Stupid trash, I want your life. With a wave of one arm, a piercingly cold, blazing pillar of fire slashed down like a flaming cloud blade. Along with the platform that had been split apart, the lightning pillar that was flying towards him was also cut apart. Pei Ye's figure moved and immediately turned into an afterimage, rushing towards Chu Hen. As he moved, Pei Ye's body quickly transformed into an indestructible red shadow blade, tearing the air apart, and the airwaves whistled. The martial ancestor sect disciples below the stage narrowed their eyes. Everyone clearly remembered that not long ago, during the battle for the top four, when Tao's killing move was instantly shattered by Pei Ye's move, the menacing red shadow blade was like the light of the shadow wings that could destroy everything. However, Chu Hen did not even move an inch. A black-colored light quickly surged out of his body and covered his entire body, as if it was the eerie nine underworld fire. A punch was thrown out. The black fist radiance was like a ferocious tiger as it collided head-on with the shadow blade that was about to explode forth. Bang! An incomparably violent power immediately surged and exploded between the two. Two different colored light pillars then soared into the sky. The chaotic aftershock waves wantonly spread in all directions. It was comparable to the terrifying collision between mountains, causing the entire arena to explode. Everyone's faces quietly turned pale. The few peak courtyard masters on Xingqing Peak also frowned, because they saw that the red shadow light that lingered around Pei Yi was directly smashed by Chu Hen's fist radiance. Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. If Pei Yi was at a disadvantage because of carelessness before, then this time, he was directly suppressed in terms of explosive power, and it was under the situation of a head-on confrontation. His cultivation is Ancient Time Realm, 7th Order. A.O. Yunzhuang, the master of Dongxian Peak, said with a deep look in his eyes. 7th Order Ancient Time Realm? Whoosh. Everyone was stunned. There was actually an entire 2 levels of difference between Chu Hen and Pei Ye's cultivation. Even so, everyone was incomparably shocked. 7th Order Ancient Time Realm? He had only entered the sect for less than 2 years. What kind of speed was this? 7th Order? 7th Order Ancient Time Realm? Even Wu Mian, who had the most contact with Chu Hen, was dumbfounded. Zhao Qingyi and Zhao Qingkai were also especially shocked, and they secretly shook their heads. They remembered that during the entrance test in the Drifting Star State, Chu Hen's cultivation level was not even as high as theirs. Bang! Boom! In the fighting ring, the two figures with peerless auras constantly burst forth with all kinds of violent sounds of power colliding. Layer after layer of ripples splashed between heaven and earth. However, the shocking thing was that Pei Yi was not able to gain the slightest advantage in every head-on collision. He was almost completely suppressed by Chu Hen. Bang! The two of them collided head-on, and the black fist instantly pierced through the powerful flames that covered the Qilin's palm. Pei Yi immediately felt his arm tremble, and the tendons and bones in his body trembled. In his shock and anger, he attacked again. His arm turned into a palm again, and a solid ball of fire rapidly spun in his palm. At the same time, a black spiral vortex also circled around Chu Hen's palm. Bang! It was another fierce head-on collision. The moment the fist and palm collided, a violent burst of flames exploded. At the same time, Chu Hen's powerful arm released a terrifying hidden force that was like a deep-sea undercurrent. Pei Ye's pupils constricted, and he immediately felt a huge impact flow through his arm and into his entire body. Bang! Waves of air flew everywhere, and Pei Yi was once again sent flying hundreds of meters away. Chapter 1247. Is this the Qilin's sacred body that is known as the martial ancestor realm's strongest power? It can't even withstand a single blow. Looking at Pei Yi, who was sent flying by Chu Hen's attack, and then hearing his words, everyone present felt their scalps go numb. Pei Yi was similarly endlessly furious. His 2 eyes narrowed, and as he flew backwards, he extended a single palm. Wong! A scarlet pillar of fire that was as ferocious as a tide exploded towards Chu Hen like a dragon emerging from the sea. Shut up! The blazing wave covered the sky and covered the earth. As it moved, the crimson pillar of fire constantly released an extremely sharp aura of destruction. From afar, it looked like a giant sword burning with substantial flames. Lightning flashed in Chu Hen's eyes. Chi. The incomparably manic energy ripples caused the space to become restless and uneasy. The high-pitched sound was like the cry of a thunderbird. Chu Hen flipped his palm over, and in an instant a majestic lightning pillar shot out like an aurora. One was as breathtaking as a divine rainbow. One was as resplendent as the sky. Clang! Two violent forces, one red and one blue, collided with each other. Suddenly, lightning and fire blossomed, and light patterns filled the sky. However, in the next moment, the sturdy lightning pillar released by Chu Hen was quickly split apart by the powerful fire pillar. Chu Hen was slightly surprised. Immediately after, the tip of the flaming pillar rapidly became incomparably sharp. Under the swirling spiral of light beams, a domineering halberd directly shot out from the flaming pillar. The halberd was about 5 meters long, and its entire body was engraved with dark red tool patterns. The edge of the halberd flickered with a cold light, and there were curved blades on both sides. "It's the Qilin Blood Divine Halberd!" The crowd below the stage cried out in alarm. The Qilin Blood Divine Halberd, a powerful divine weapon that surpassed a saint weapon. Combined with the bloodline limit of the Qilin sacred body, it could infinitely explode with terrifying destructive power. Below the stage, Wang Li, who was being supported by 2 people, had a slightly gloomy expression. He could not help but clench his fists. Pei hadn't used the Qilin's blood halberd at all during their battle, but now he was forced to use it by Chu Hen in just a few moves. It was easy to imagine how much he felt right now. Clang! Thunder roared and lightning illuminated the sky. The Qilin blood halberd was like a hot knife through butter. Like a ray of divine light going against the flow, it split apart the boundless lightning pillar in succession, and its momentum did not decrease as it charged towards Chu Hen. Chu Hen raised his eyes slightly and waved his palms like brushing willows. A wisp of vigorous, true chi swirled in his palms and spread out. It then transformed into a solid light screen shield in front of him. Bang! True essence surged and light bloomed. When the Qilin Blood Divine Halberd encountered the light screen, it immediately stopped in midair. At the same time, Pei suddenly set off a monstrous momentum and flew over. His palm, which was as powerful as a fierce beast, firmly grasped the end of the Qilin Blood Divine Halberd. With a push of his arm, a violent impact surged out. Boom! The piercingly cold, killing intent directly caused the light barrier in front of Chu Hen to explode and shatter into pieces. The tip of the halberd moved up and stabbed straight toward Chu Hen's throat. Everyone below the stage felt their hearts skip a beat, and all of them revealed a horrified expression. Some were excited, and some were nervous. Swoosh, the hot edge of the halberd swept up a merciless killing intent. Chu Hen dodged sideways in the air, and the sharp halberd whistled past his throat. Pei turned his wrist, and along with an arc of light in the air, the scimitar on the side of the halberd chased after and slashed down again. Chu Hen raised his hand and slapped. At the same time that the palm energy in the air was shattered by the Qilin Blood Divine Halberd, Chu Hen immediately used the recoil to retreat. "Where do you think you're going?" Pei shouted furiously and leaped up. He held the Qilin Blood Divine Halberd with both hands as he leaped down towards Chu Hen. Vast crimson flames rose from within his body, and the Qilin Blood Divine Halberd was completely covered in a layer of raging flames. As swift as lightning, a 300-meter-long halberd light that shook the sky suddenly descended from the sky, and it pierced down towards Chu Hen. Chu Hen's pupils constricted slightly, and the peerlessly domineering pillar of light was reflected in his eyes. Rumble. The terrifying halberd light was like a divine punishment that pierced through the sky and it smashed heavily against the arena. At practically the exact same moment, Chu Hen flashed away from where he stood. The heavy and deafening rumble of energy was deafening, and the arena collapsed inch by inch. The surface of the arena cracked open rapidly, and an enormous hole spread out in all directions. The flying rubble was like a flock of startled moths, and it swept through the entire arena along with surging waves of energy. Under the assault of the chaotic airflow, Chu Hen fell 1,000 meters away. Looking at the extremely violent scene in front of them, many disciples of the West Dome Peak Academy felt their hearts light up and their eyes lit up again. Senior Brother Pei Yi is starting to fight back. Once Senior Brother Pei Yi gets serious, that guy won't even know how he died. Senior Brother Pei Yi will win. Let him see the power of the Qilin sacred body. How dare he be so arrogant? The arena, which had been quiet for a short while, began to become noisy again. Chu Hen coldly glanced at the audience, the corners of his mouth raised, and he immediately flipped his hand outwards. Draining Spirit Spear. Buzz. The sharp spear that had fallen on one side of the arena suddenly made a violent agitation, as if it was summoned by its master, and then it flew off the ground with a whoosh, drawing a powerful wave of energy in the air, and then steadily fell into Chu Hen's palm. An invisible king's aura swept in all directions. Chu Hen held the Draining Spirit Spear and pointed it at Pei Yi in front of him. His expression was full of provocation. Sizzle. Dazzling dark blue lightning quickly lingered around the spear, and the dangerous aura made people's hearts palpitate. Pei Yi's face became more and more sinister. His aura also became more and more powerful. Flames burned outside his body, and the Qilin blood divine halberd in his hand flickered. The aura it emitted was like that of a god of war. I want to see how long you can last. I'll return this sentence to you. Chu Hen's eyes flashed with lightning, and then he raised his spear. A cold light arrived first, and then the spear shot out like a dragon. Spear light fell like rain, whistling toward Pei Yi. The latter's expression was fierce, and he held the heavy halberd with both hands, facing the attack. Boom! Bang! In an instant, on the high firmament battle platform, a storm of sparks broke out one after another. Light and shadow flew together, and the waves of energy soared to the sky. The Draining Spirit Spear, covered in blue lightning, constantly collided with the Qilin blood divine halberd that was rising with red flames. The audience's eyes were dazzled, and there was too much for their eyes to take in. The majestic halberd light tore through the sky, like the flowing shadow of the divine moon, fierce and overbearing, showing the power to split mountains and split the earth. The gorgeous spear shadows attacked in a dense manner, and they were like the convergence of starlight. They changed unpredictably, and they moved in large movements, causing one to be caught off guard. The surging waves of energy were comparable to the arrival of a storm, layer after layer. Between attack and defense, it made people's eyes follow closely, and they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. What exquisite spear art! Someone in the audience shook his head and exclaimed. They thought that once the Qilin blood divine halberd appeared, Pei Yi would definitely be able to turn the situation around. However, unexpectedly, the other party's fierce attacks were all blocked by Chu Hen. While defending, Chu Hen could constantly find opportunities to counterattack. Amazing! Wu Mian, who was on the southern viewing platform, was already a little stunned, and he even suspected the reality of the scene in front of him. I say, are we still in Senior Brother Wang Li's illusion? I think so, too. Zhao Qingyi also secretly shook her head. Looking at Chu Hen on the stage, Wu Yan's expression was particularly complicated. In his mind, he was still thinking about the words he said to Chu Hen the night before yesterday. At that time, he had always been suspicious, not knowing why Chu Hen was unmoved. It turned out that he had greatly underestimated his opponent. Those people are probably getting restless by now, Wu Yan smiled dryly. At the same time, he subconsciously glanced at the senior figures of Beichun Peak Academy. All the elders, Dean Luo Tsang, and Peak Lord Yuan Shan. At this moment, All of them were frowning with gloomy and complicated expressions on their faces. It was as if a spider web had formed in their hearts, and it was suffocating. Perhaps he's still angry? South Spirit Peak Master Ning Qiushui casually asked North Star Peak Master Yuan Shang. Angry? What was there to be angry about? Yi Yao gave up the opportunity to let Chu Hen advance. Yuan Shang shook his head in a daze. There was even an indescribable dryness in his voice. This time, Chu Hen had directly slapped the entire Beichen Peak Academy in the face. Apart from shock, he did not have the slightest temper. Chapter 1248. Maybe he's still angry. South Spirit Peak Master Ning Qiushui casually asked North City Peak Master Yuan Shang. The latter shook his head, but his heart was indescribably complicated. Only at this moment did he understand that he had wronged Yi Yao. Not only him, almost all the disciples of North Star Peak Academy, even the entire martial sect, wronged her. Why didn't I notice such a monstrous genius by my side? Ning Qiushui continued to ask in confusion. A new disciple who entered the sect for less than 2 years and reached the 7th level of the Eternal Realm, entered the finals of the sect battle, directly fought against the top genius who was ranked 2nd on the Heaven Martial Roll. Even Xiao Xingyi couldn't reach such a level back then. And it was precisely such a monstrous genius that was hard to see in 1,000 years that was directly overlooked by the entire martial sect. The other 3 Peak Academies could be ignored, but even North Star Peak Academy was so blind. It was really inexcusable. Yuan Shang sighed deeply and nodded. Super grade 9 martial arts talent. But he hasn't even reached the profound body realm bloodline boundary. Oh? Ning Qiushui was stunned. She looked at the young figure on the fighting ring with a shocking spear aura. Every spear strike and every style displayed the might of a storm, the power of a fierce dragon, and the swift and fierce spear light was peerlessly sharp. Even when facing the fierce attacks of the Eternal Realm Stage 9 powerhouse, Pei Yi, he was still able to deal with them with ease, under the situation where there was a difference of 2 levels in cultivation. He didn't seem to be at a disadvantage at all. Then, you're telling me that this person hasn't even reached the profound body realm bloodline boundary? Ning Qiushui suspected that she had heard wrongly. Of course, she knew that Yuan Shang wasn't someone who liked to lie. Most importantly, the other party indeed didn't take Chu Hen seriously. This could be seen from how he angrily left the banquet yesterday. Who tested the bloodline boundary? Ning Qiushui didn't let it go. The corner of Yuan Shang's eyes narrowed as he subconsciously looked in the direction of Elder Lu. At this moment, Elder Lu's heart was also filled with panic, as if there was a ball of cotton stuffed in his chest. This wasn't an error of judgment. He was blind. Such a shocking talent was actually not directly recruited into the sect back then, and even sent to carry out the assessment mission. Fortunately, Chu Hen had come. If he had run to another sect in a fit of anger, he wouldn't even have a place to cry. Thinking of this, Elder Lu couldn't help but suspect that there might have been a mistake in the results of the examination back then. Boom! A series of violent energies swept through the entire arena. Wave after wave of chaotic air currents swept down, pouncing on the audience below the stage. Looking at the sky, full of spear shadows and halberd lights, everyone felt as if their hearts were being squeezed by an invisible hand, not allowing them to relax for even a moment. It's going to be troublesome if I can't take him down after so long. Humph, what's the trouble? Don't forget that senior brother Pei, Ye's Kylan holy body gets stronger in the later stages. In terms of strength, who can compare with him? That's true. Right now, it's hard to tell who's stronger and who's weaker. Soon, the gap between them will appear. It was hard to tell who was superior. This was what most people thought. However, Qiu Xingyi, Qi Qinying, Wang Li, and the other top geniuses all had solemn expressions. The Kylan blood halberd that Pei Yi used was a divine weapon that contained the power of the Kylan's blood essence. Although the dripping god spear in Chu Hen's hand was also quite domineering, it was only a divine weapon. Using a divine weapon to fight against a divine weapon and still be in an invincible position, it was up to the benevolent to see who was stronger and who was weaker. Holy Kylan slash! As Pei Yi roared, he waved the Kylan blood halberd with both hands, and an extremely powerful half-arc of scarlet light swept towards Chu Hen like a divine moon shuttle. The terrifying killing power traversed through the air, causing the space to tremble faintly, and an arc-shaped gully appeared on the stage. Not showing any weakness, Chu Hen held up his spear to meet the attack. The dazzling spear light, intertwined with lightning bolts, shot up and collided head-on with the halberd light. The violent aftermath of the power was like two divine rainbows intersecting, and messy light shadows splashed everywhere. Oomph! A dense cold glow surged within Pei Ye's eyes, and then the Kylan blood halberd in his hand emanated an expanse of strange talisman light. Rays of dark and obscure light seemed like they were drawn from the depths of the Earth's core. Kylan blood formation. OM. Waves of intense fluctuations of energy silently swept towards the surroundings of the Solaris combat arena. Chu Hen's gaze turned cold, and then a mysterious talisman formation that emanated a scorching aura suddenly appeared beneath him. Moreover, strands of dark red markings that were shaped like beast blood swiftly swept out from beneath his feet. The talisman formation instantly covered an area of 300 m. The markings at the center silently transformed into the image of a beast that was shaped like a Kylan. Roar! A ferocious beast's roar that caused one's soul to tremble shot furiously into the sky. After that, the sky dimmed down, and then numerous scarlet-red chains that flickered with flames shot out explosively from within the talisman formation. Walala! They seemed like chains that came from hell, and they swiftly coiled around Chu Hen. The illusory chains that seemed both real and fake swiftly coiled around Chu Hen's arms, legs, neck, and body. Dark red hellfire slowly rose into the sky above Chu Hen's head, and then it transformed into the image of a ferocious Kylan that pressed down upon him. In an instant, Chu Hen's shoulders felt as if they were being crushed by a mountain. The eyes of everyone below the arena lit up, especially those from the West Sky Peak Academy. They were extremely excited. Now's the time. Get rid of him. Senior brother Pei Yi, get rid of him. Pei Ye's eyes surged with powerful flames as he rose with the Kylan blood halberd in his hand and stabbed it directly towards Chu Hen's heart. It's over. It's over. Countless people below the arena frowned, and their expressions changed drastically. Big brother Chu Hen. Yao clenched her fists nervously and couldn't help but exclaim. Long Xuan Shuang, Zhao Qingyi, Wu Yin, and the others turned pale as well. However, just as the piercingly cold halberd was about to strike, a dense and overbearing black light suddenly erupted from Chu Hen's body. Chu Hen's eyes were as deep as the infinite chaos of the universe, vast and boundless. The monstrous aura that shook the heavens and the earth seemed to come from the supreme might of a fiend god. Break through the shackles, break the shackles. Under the countless shocked gazes of the audience, all of the hell iron chains wrapped around Chu Hen's body tightened and exploded at the same time. The draining god spear in his hand erupted with a dense black light. Huh! A sharp, ear-piercing howl resounded through the sky. The Chilan beast silhouette above Chu Hen was immediately torn to pieces. Under the gazes of tens of thousands of astonished gazes, an ancient lizard dragon with a pair of wings on its back and a body covered in scales astonishingly appeared behind Chu Hen. The soaring, ferocious aura caused people's hearts to tremble. Everyone present turned pale with fright. OM! In an instant, Chu Hen raised his spear, and a meter-long ray of light erupted with starlight. The tip of the draining god spear that was covered in a myriad of bolts of lightning collided with the tip of the Chilan blood halberd. Bang! The heavy halberd and the cold spear. As soon as they collided, a myriad of sparks instantly erupted. The heavy and powerful waves converged like a tsunami, and they were accompanied by an extremely ferocious wave that shot into the sky. Pei Ye's arms suddenly trembled, and the Chilan blood halberd in his hand almost flew out of his grasp. The pupils of Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, and the others narrowed slightly. An uneasy feeling silently surged into their hearts. The extraordinary and overbearing energy pushed Pei Yi back repeatedly. Right at this moment, Chu Hen flew up without the slightest hesitation. The cold spear stopped the Qilin blood halberd, and then he flicked it up and immediately flicked Pei Ye's halberd away. In an instant, Pei Ye's defenses were completely gone. Chu Hen held the end of the draining god spear with both hands, and his figure swiftly spun 360 degrees. An expanse of blurry spear images flashed through the air. Bang! A muffled bang resounded as the draining god spear spun around and swept heavily against Pei Ye's chest. A chaotic vortex exploded in the air. True energy shot out while waves of energy swept out. Pei Yi was directly blasted flying by Chu Hen's attack. His internal organs hurt, and the vital energy and blood within his body surged. Moreover, the Qilin blood halberd in his hand flew out of his grasp. My God! All the spectators who'd confidently proclaimed that Pei Yi would turn the situation around opened their eyes wide once more. In his haste, Pei Yi hurriedly relied on the force of the impact to swiftly retreat. On the other hand, Chu Hen naturally intended to continue following closely behind him. Pei Ye's pupils turned cold as he gazed at Chu Hen, who was charging at him. He immediately pressed his palms together, and vast true energy surged out of his body like a torrent. Triple prison door. Rumble, the soaring sky arena shook violently, and the ground in front of it exploded. Following that, 3 large black doors that were surging with dark and gloomy light and covered with complicated runes rose impressively on the arena. Each of the black doors was 100 meters tall and about 10 meters thick. The 3 huge doors directly blocked the 2 of them. It was the most powerful defensive technique of the Western Dome Peak. Wu Yin, who was below the arena, had a slight change of expression. During the rank advancement battle of the top 16, Pei Yi's triple prison door had directly blocked his 6 magnificent star jades. Just when everyone present thought that Pei Yi would be able to make use of the powerful defense of the 3 heavy prison doors to make adjustments, an incomparably heavy and earth-shattering sound rang out from the soaring firmament arena in front of them. Only a fierce gust of wind could be seen, and a cold spear covered with dark blue lightning was the first to pierce through the first black door. The piercingly cold spear ray was like a divine pillar. It directly broke open a gap that was a few meters wide. After the tyrannical rage spear ray that shocked the heavens, Chu Hen held the dripping god spear with both of his hands, and he was unstoppable. What? Everyone's expression changed again and again, and they were shocked again and again in their hearts. All the elders and peak courtyard masters on Star Peak stood up abruptly. Bang! Bang! Another 2 heavy and loud bangs sounded out in succession. The terrifying spear ray shot down, and an enormous hole was pierced through the center of the 3 black doors. Triple prison door. The most powerful defensive technique of the Western Dome Peak was useless before Chu Hen at this moment. Who could compare to such strength? The fierce airflow surged down as Chu Hen soared in the sky and attacked explosively with the dripping god spear in his hand. Pei Ye's eyes were suffused with a dense, ruthless light. He condensed his palm, and the vast and powerful true origin swiftly converged at the center of his palm. Numerous crimson-colored flames were like dragons and serpents. F***CK off. Pei furiously roared in a grim voice as he swung his palm out, and a palm energy that could topple mountains and overturn the seas surged down all the way. Chu Hen didn't dodge, and the dripping god spear in his hand shot out with the force of a thunderbolt. The lightning that coiled around the spear interweaved and flickered, and it emitted extraordinary splendor. Bang! The terrifying palm energy and the piercingly cold spear intersected and immediately set off a wave of energy. The wantonly exploded with true origin force continuously. However, it only paused for less than half a second, and the dripping god spear directly shattered Pei Ye's majestic palm energy like a hot knife through butter. A cold light flashed between heaven and earth. Pei Ye's pupils suddenly trembled, and an endless aura of destruction swept over. Hiss. Chapter 1249. A breathtaking cold light flashed between heaven and earth, illuminating the pupils of everyone present. A string of bright blood splattered. Under countless shocked gazes, the tip of the draining spirit spear, which was flickering with lightning arcs, directly pierced through Peiye's thick and powerful right palm. In an instant, the entire space on the stage seemed to have fallen into a state of stillness. Everyone's expression suddenly changed. Qi Qianying, Wang Li, Wu Yin, and many other top disciples on the heavenly martial list all narrowed their eyes, their faces revealing unconcealable shock. Even Xiao Xingyi, who was at the top of the list, couldn't help but secretly nod his head. All the high-level elders of the sect, including the 8 Peak Academy masters, couldn't sit still anymore. All of them left their seats and stood up. Apart from Dongfang Hengji, who could still maintain his composure, everyone else inside and outside the Star Peak was shocked. The face of Situ Song, the West Dome Peak Master, became increasingly gloomy. This was the last thing he wanted to see. He originally thought that the championship was already in his hands. Seeing that only Qiao Xingyi was left in front of Pei Yi, who would have thought that Chu Hin would appear out of nowhere. The most infuriating one was the new disciple of Beichen Peak Academy. Beichen Peak Academy. New disciple. No matter which label it was in existence at the bottom of the martial sect. Now, these two labels were combined on one person, which directly made people's scalps tingle. For Situ Song, he absolutely couldn't allow such a thing to happen. The chief disciple of West Dome Peak must not lose to a new disciple of Beichen Peak Academy. Absolutely not. Situ Song's eyes were gloomy as he secretly scolded. Chi! Chi! The gorgeous cold spear was like a bolt of lightning, piercing through Peiye's palm. In just a short moment, everyone present felt as if they had been separated by several years. Chu Hin exerted strength in his arm and raised the tip of the spear. The cold spear, covered with dazzling lightning arcs, shot straight down, directly piercing the opponent's throat. The cold spear was like a shadow, as gorgeous as a ray of light. Everyone's pupils constricted. However, just as the ice-cold spear tip was less than half a centimeter away from Peiye's throat, a buzz, wave of air stacked up, and a muffled sound surged out. The ice-cold spear was directly fixed in the air. Everyone was shocked once again. Peiye's other arm was actually firmly grabbing onto the draining god spear's body. Scarlet flames covered his arm like a pair of iron pincers. Not moving at all, boundless, ferocious aura spread out in all directions. At this moment, Peiye's eyes emitted the ruthlessness of a ferocious beast. They were suffused with a scarlet blood-red light, and the aura that caused one to shudder was clamorous. The scarlet light that surged continuously was like the flames of magma in the Earth's core. At this moment, everyone felt that this person wasn't Pei Yi, but a ferocious beast. Hee. Pei Yi smiled, and his smile was especially vicious and savage. His scarlet eyes stared coldly at Chu Hin, and every single word he said was filled with dense hatred and killing intent. Congratulations, you've successfully angered me. This is the first time. The momentum of his rage was like a thunderclap piercing the ears. Roar! In the next moment, the ferocious beast's roar that shook the sky, shook the surroundings, and a strand of monstrous rage shot into the sky. It was like a violent volcano erupting, and the violent flames rose to over 300 m. In an instant, an enormous Qilin raised its head and roared madly within the flames that shot into the sky. Rumble! An extremely ferocious and terrifying, imposing aura condensed into a surging shockwave that surged out. Chu Hin's expression changed slightly, and he instantly felt his body tremble while his arm went numb. His fingers immediately loosened the draining god spear in his palm, and then he was blasted flying by this violent force. Pei Ye's gaze revealed ruthlessness. The blood vessels on his left arm bulged up as he grabbed the middle end of the draining god spear, and then he pulled it out. Hiss! Along with the blood that sprayed out, he forcefully pulled out the spear that pierced through his right palm. A clear bloody hole appeared on the center of Pei Ye's right palm. However, Pei Yi didn't even spare a glance before tossing the draining god's spear to the side, and his gaze that surged with a bloody glow stared fiercely at Chu Hen, who stood before him. The voice that came from his throat was low and icy cold. "Suffer my wrath. Trash. West Sky Technique. Heaven's Blade." Pei Yi, who was in a rage, erupted with infinite killing intent. The 9 heavens changed color, and wind and thunder intertwined. Pei Yi, who was filled with monstrous flames, raised one hand to the sky, and an overwhelming and terrifying power almost overturned the 9 heavens. The spectacular scene of the previous peak duel reappeared in the sky above the high heaven platform. Mighty dark clouds filled the sky, and a dazzling golden divine light was released from the raging nebula. Everyone's pupils shrank to the size of a needle tip once again. Their faces were illuminated so brightly that even their facial features couldn't be seen clearly. Endless destructive power tore through the void, and countless giant light pillars that were comparable to divine punishment condensed in the void with a piercingly cold and austere power. However, what was different from before was, in the battle against Wang Li, the power of the West Sky Technique covered the entire high heaven platform. But at this moment, all the power was almost concentrated together. This time, the destructive power that Chu Hen was about to endure was much more terrifying than Wang Li's. Qiu Xingyi, Qi Qianying, Wang Li, Wu Yin, and the other top genius disciples had solemn expressions on their faces. Without the powerful defense of the Southern Spirit tactic, how would Chu Hen be able to block Pei Ye's super powerful killing move? Looking at the dazzling light pillar that was comparable to the Sword of Death, Chu Hen's eyes narrowed. Without any hesitation, he suddenly put his palms together, and an extremely cold ice cyclone suddenly erupted from his body. Limitless Arctic Storm. Arctic Storm. A deep voice reverberated between heaven and earth. In an instant, the temperature within 100 miles of Star Peak plummeted to freezing point. Ice and snow roared, and frost blades filled the sky. Rumble, along with the high heaven platform that was covered in ice, thick and large ice walls immediately rose from all directions around Chu Hen. The ice wall surrounded Chu Hen from all sides, sealing him within. This is the Shao Alliance's technique? Is he the one who injured the Shao Alliance? He actually stole the Shao Alliance's 4 souls. This familiar power had been used by the Shao Alliance before. Seeing this scene, many disciples of the West Sky Peak Academy showed indignant expressions. Not only did he beat the Shao Alliance half to death, but he also stole the 4 souls of others. It was simply shameless. However, in the next moment, there was another incomparably majestic aura that leaked out from where Chu Hen was. Limitless Heart of Thorns. Rumble, in an instant, countless crimson light patterns suddenly bloomed on the high heaven platform. The light patterns were like blood, dark and gloomy. Quickly after, under tens of thousands of widened gazes, incomparably large vines climbed up the thick ice wall like the tentacles of a monster from hell. In the blink of an eye, they covered the entire ice wall, forming a second layer of powerful defense around Chu Hen's body. What? Everyone's eyes widened. Chapter 1250. Sun Luo, Heart of Thorns. Just as everyone was cursing Chu Hen for snatching the Shao Alliance's 4 ice-attributed soul spirits, a wave of wood-attributed Sun Luo force erupted. Gazing at the sturdy vine plants that covered the entire surface of the stage and rapidly covered the exterior of the gigantic ice wall, everyone below the stage felt their scalps turn numb from Chu Hen's display of his 2 trump cards, while their hearts trembled with fear. The expressions of the 8 Peak Courtyard Masters changed. Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, Wu Yin, and the other geniuses all narrowed their eyes. Snatching the Shao Alliance's power? In just a blink of an eye, those who had cursed Lin Xiu were all slapped in the face. The majestic and luxuriant vines were like huge tentacles that came from hell. Layer after layer, they covered the outside of the thick and heavy ice wall, directly giving Chu Hen 2 layers of powerful protection. Buzz, There was no time to recover, nor was there any time to be shocked. The countless powerful divine light beams swept up a terrifying power that could destroy everything and suddenly fell from the sky. The spectacular scene once again impacted the visual nerves of everyone present. For example, it was like a divine punishment from the heavens, shattering the heavens. Under thousands of gazes filled with endless shock, the numerous heaven's blades that had gathered in one place heavily struck the area where Chu Hen was at with a power that could pierce through the heavens and the earth. Bang! The earth-shattering and star-like impact immediately exploded the entire arena. Tens of thousands of gigantic vines were broken into countless pieces. The majestic beam of divine radiance destroyed everything in its path. While cutting down countless giant vines, it once again bombarded the magnificent and luxurious large ice wall. Boom! A series of heavy explosions reverberated between heaven and earth. In an instant, the entire soaring sky battle ring seemed to be hit by the impact of a meteorite from outer space. The stage shook violently, and the stone bricks exploded into pieces. Huge cracks rapidly spread in all directions. Under the gazes of many shocked gazes, the huge ice wall standing on the stage immediately burst open, and a surging cold air surged out like a tide. The surging aftershock was comparable to a rapidly expanding storm vortex. Rubble soared into the sky, and chi waves roared. The deep fault split in the middle, and the entire platform of clouds was almost divided into two. At this moment, everyone's heartstrings were tightly pulled together. Everyone's eyes were trembling. Western Sky Art. Heaven's Blade. The power of Pei Ye's attack far surpassed that of when he faced Wang Li previously. The violent storm was constantly tearing the space in front of them. Even the masters of the 8 peak academies had their eyes fixed on it. How is Chu Hen? This was the question in everyone's mind. This power is really terrifying. It really makes people tremble. He actually grasped 2 types of limitless power. I had thought that he was the one who stole Shao Alliance's power. But now that I look at it, Shao Alliance doesn't even have a tenth of his power. Oomph. So what if you've grasped 2 types of limitless energy? It can't block senior brother Pei Ye's Western Sky Art at all. That's right. Even if Chu Hen doesn't die, he will lose half his life. Bang! Suddenly, at this moment, an incomparably majestic black wave directly swept out from the chaotic energy storm. Sect Master Dongfang Hengji, who was sitting on the highest spot of Xingqing Peak, slightly raised his eyes. Below the stage, everyone's heart suddenly trembled. The airflow that permeated between heaven and earth quietly became chaotic. The invisible aura seeped into countless people's minds. On the high firmament arena, a young figure emitting a proud aura once again appeared in everyone's line of sight. What? In an instant, everyone was shocked. The eyes of Yao, Long Xuan, Wu Mian, and the others lit up. However, the eyes of the others were wide open, their faces filled with thick disbelief. They saw that Chu Hen was unscathed, and his aura was still as proud as before. His deep eyes were like the vast universe of stars, causing one's heart to palpitate. A black shadow floated behind him. That shadow stuck to his back, and its outline and shape were like a second Chu Hen. Is it the power of the bloodline boundary? Isn't it only the battle body? Even the Xian body has not reached the bloodline boundary. Many uneasy voices sounded in the crowd. At this moment, a trembling voice softly came into everyone's ears. Best, Saint Body boom. The voice was not loud, but it was even louder than a bolt from the blue in everyone's ears. Best Saint Body. Hearing these 4 words, even the heads of the 8 Great Peaks Academies were faintly numb. It can't be wrong. I was also there when the Deep Star State recruited new disciples. On the stone tablet, to test the bloodline boundary, the lowest is a lower grade Xian body, and the highest is an upper grade saint body. In other words, those who exceed the level of an upper grade saint body cannot be tested. Oh my God! One word woke everyone up from their dreams. At this moment, the atmosphere of the entire high firmament arena was endless shock, and everyone's heart was set off unprecedented monstrous waves. Even Wu Yin, Wu Mian, Zhao Qingyi, Zhao Qingkai, and a few others were sincerely shocked. Long Xuan and Yi Yao were overjoyed. After being misunderstood for so long, the counterattack at this moment was a direct slap to the entire martial arts sect. They knew that Chu Hen would never let them down. Best same body. Who could compare to him? While Wang Li, Qi Qianying, Wu Yin, and the other top geniuses were shocked, they subconsciously glanced at the extraordinary young figure on the Xingqing Peak. Qiu Xingyi, the top of the sky martial list. Among all the disciples of the martial arts sect, he was the only one who had the best saint body bloodline boundary. Elder Liu, who was responsible for testing the bloodline boundary, was as pale as a sheet, and his hands were faintly trembling. The lowest was a lower-grade Xian body, and the highest was an upper-grade saint body. Those who exceeded these two standards could not be evaluated. People only thought that Chu Hen was at the bottom, but they never thought that his bloodline boundary had broken through the top. At this moment, Elder Liu felt a chill down his spine. He had almost become the martial arts sect's eternal sinner. Fortunately, Chu Hen still came here. Powerful auras burst forth on the Ling Shao battle platform, causing many violent collisions. In front of Chu Hen, who was enveloped in a dense black light, Pei Yi, whose entire body was covered in blazing flames, had an extremely gloomy expression. The gaze he looked at Chu Hen was no longer as simple as pure hatred and killing intent. There was also a deep sense of jealousy. He was definitely a great danger. A sinister smile appeared on Pei Ye's face, and a boundless killing intent was released. Top quality saint physique, huh? Ha ha! What do you do to me? Roar! A monstrous violent power rushed into the sky, like a tsunami of raging flames covering the sky. Accompanied by an incomparably shocking ferocity, a huge Qilin beast suddenly appeared under the sky. Qiu Xing, Pei Yi changed the topic and actually raised his finger to point at the top of the leaderboard. Watch carefully. Originally, this move was supposed to be used on you, but now, I'll show it to you in advance. It was domineering like a mountain. Roar! The instant Pei Ye's words left his mouth, another earth-shattering roar of a ferocious beast resounded in all directions. Under many pairs of trembling gazes, a second ferocious Qilin beast shadow appeared in the air. This Qilin's entire body was covered in black scales. It was ferocious and terrifying, and its 4 claws stepped on black flames. Black Qilin. Chapter 12:51. Black Qilin. The earth-shattering ferocious aura caused the clouds to change and the earth to lose its color. At this moment, Pei Yi shouted at the top of the heavenly martial list, Qiu Xingyi. His aura shook the heavens and shocked everyone. Sensing the monstrous aura coming from the two Qilins, everyone could not help but feel their hearts palpitate as if they were standing in front of an ancient ferocious beast. Everyone's hearts trembled with unease. It was a genuine ferocious aura. There are 2 Qilins? It said that senior brother Pei Yi subdued a black Qilin's divine soul in the Deep Star State's Qilin Cave. That's right. I've also heard about this. That place was originally a volcanic area. It's a dangerous place for tens of thousands of years. Rumor has it that a black Qilin died there. Its remaining soul and beast blood are indestructible and attached to the magma in the cave. Over the years, it absorbed the mystical flame's energy in the magma and finally condensed into a powerful demon soul. I thought it was just a legend. I didn't expect it to be true. Exclamations could be heard from below the stage. When Long Xuan and Yi Yao saw the Qilin shrouded in black flames, they could not help but look at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. They clearly remembered that Chu Hen had once ventured into the Qilin's cave alone to search for Luo Mengchang's whereabouts. After that time, Chu Hen's face was a little gloomy, and he seemed to be in a slightly sorry state. Even the punishment armor was destroyed. At that time, when everyone asked him the reason, Chu Hen only replied that he met 3 unreasonable people with extremely powerful cultivations. After that, this matter was never mentioned again. Originally, they thought this was the end of the story. Now that they saw the black Qilin, they seemed to understand something. In the soaring sky battle ring, the wind blew and clouds surged. The sky changed color. Peiya's eyes were ferocious and filled with rage. Tremble. Roar. The two Qilins roared at the sky, bursting out with endless destructive power. Then, under the shocked gazes of the crowd, the red and black beasts merged together at a speed visible to the naked eye. The power of darkness, the scarlet flame. The two powerful forces fused with each other, and thousands of strands of vigorous energy whirlpools spun rapidly in the same direction. An incomparably majestic and spectacular nebula stirred the sky. A vast and terrifying power engulfed the surroundings. Buzz! The space trembled violently, and the two Qilin beast phantoms suddenly fused into one. In an instant, a world-shaking ferocious being that was 1,000 meters tall appeared beneath the sky, and a black Qilin that was burning with crimson flames appeared before everyone's eyes. Everyone's heart palpitated with fear. An indescribable fear reached the depths of his soul. Roar! With a roar, a strong gust of wind surged. At this moment, Pei, who stood beneath the Qilin, was like an unparalleled god of war. So what if you have a supreme great saint body? With a loud shout, he extended his palm towards Chu Hen in front of him. A wave of berserk power pressed down from the sky, with the power of a mountain. Die! Everyone's expression changed again and again, and their hearts were filled with shock. Everyone was shocked by the aura that erupted from Pei Yi. Many disciples of the West Dome Peak Academy were excited. Boom! However, at the instant before the berserk hand that blotted out the sky was about to land on Chu Hen's body, it exploded into light fragments that blotted the sky. Along with the chaotic energy whirlpools, it surged out. Chu Hen's eyes flashed with bright lightning. Sizzle! The manic momentum was like the loud cries of thousands of thunderbirds. Countless dark blue lightning pillars bloomed from Chu Hen's body. Like an infinitely extending three-dimensional net, the majestic large lightning pillars, like dragons and pythons intertwining, immediately soared into the sky. In the blink of an eye, the sky above the high firmament battle platform was immediately covered with a violent lightning domain. Thousands of lightning tribulations rapidly merged and condensed, and a dazzling light shone in the sky. Roar! It was the same roar of a ferocious beast that touched the soul, and everyone's face turned pale. That is, even the masters of the 8 peak courtyards frowned as their eyes were filled with shock. Sizzle! Divine lightning intertwined and tore the sky apart. Endless lightning gathered in the sky net, and a huge dragon emitting a terrifying divine aura suddenly formed. Its entire body was covered in lightning, and the dense blue electric arcs were like ancient, mysterious scales. Chu Hen was like an ancient wizard who controlled the power of divine lightning. He looked at Pei Yi indifferently, his brows full of arrogance. You can die now. Huh? Pei Yi was so angry that he laughed. Very good. Then let's see who will die. Who? Roar! Roar! Accompanied by a terrifying divine might that shook the heavens, the black Qilin, whose entire body was covered in scarlet flames, stepped on the strange flames and charged forward. The lightning dragon, whose entire body was covered in violent lightning, descended in anger, sweeping up a destructive force as it swooped down. The world changed color. The sky was about to split. Bang! An incomparably loud and heavy sound immediately resounded between heaven and earth. At this moment, space distorted, the 9 heavens shook, and everyone's hearts almost stopped. An earth-shattering shockwave soared into the sky, whistling in all directions. The stone bricks on the soaring sky battle platform were all shattered into powder, and layer after layer of soil was sent flying. Rumble! With a loud explosion, the stage that was as large as a public square was directly split in 2 waves of violent shockwaves swept out. Bang, bang, bang. With a series of violent explosions, the protective light screens under the stage shattered like glass, shattering into millions of pieces. All the audience below the stage retreated from the shock. There were even some relatively weaker people who were directly sent flying, their blood surging, and they almost fainted on the ground. Everyone was shocked. Everyone was horrified. The battle between the two's trump cards. It was so terrifying. Xiao Xingyi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, Wu Yan, and the other top disciples on the heaven martial list all had solemn expressions, their eyes trembling. The masters of the 8 great peak academies were also tense, and their faces were gloomy. Especially the West Sky Peak Master Situ Song and the North Sky Peak Master Yuan Shang. Even though they were used to great storms, it was difficult for them to calm down at this moment. One was the chief disciple of the West Sky Peak Academy. The other was a newcomer of the North Sky Peak Academy. In the history of the martial sect, a scene that had never appeared before could be said to have ignited the entire audience. Boom! A series of violent explosions of power could be said to be earth-shattering. Scarlet flames and blue lightning constantly intersected and flowed in all directions. The chaotic shockwaves that constantly tore through space tore each other apart. Pei Ye's eyes surged with thick flames, and he stretched out his palms towards the sky. You can't win against me. The bloodline boundary of the Qilin's sacred body was fully released without reservation. In an instant, magma-like light patterns immediately flowed around the black Qilin's body. Its aura burned the sky. The endless Qilin fire that erupted from the black Qilin pounced towards the lightning dragon with the force of a prairie fire. He was going to win. Seeing this scene, the many disciples of the West Sky Peak Academy were overjoyed. Peak Master Sidu Song's face also quietly revealed a grim smile. The outcome was about to be decided. However, in the next moment, the lightning dragon was enveloped by the Qilin fire. An extremely thick and surging gray aura leaked out from Chu Hen's body without any warning. Along with the sound of his voice, a desolate and dark gray aura was like an uncontrollable flood of desolation. It suddenly swept out in all directions and spread out toward the entire soaring sky battle platform. It covered the sky and covered the earth. The gray cyclone formed a powerful shock wave that surged down. The sky and earth changed color, and the surrounding space turned into a dim yellow space. Dust filled the sky. Traces of yellow sand mixed with brown turbid air filled the sky and danced wildly. It was like the gray aura of the god of death had descended. All the vitality in the world dimmed at the fastest speed possible. Sun Luo, 1,000 miles of desolation. The hearts of everyone present suddenly trembled. Before they could react, they were affected by the overflowing gray aura, and the skin on their arms faintly wrinkled. The sudden and shocking change caught everyone off guard. Each and every one of them trembled, and their faces turned pale. Chapter 1252. The third one, the limitless power. The sudden and shocking change caught everyone in the entire star-raising peak off guard. The grayish aura that filled the heavens and earth was like the dark aura that the Grim Reaper exhaled. Dust filled the sky, and spiritual energy dissipated. The entire soaring sky arena, even the air, was filled with a desolate and turbid aura. One trump card after another was revealed. Everyone was completely shocked by Chu Hen. They felt a chill run down their spines. Everyone knew that the Demon Clan's Limitless King had refined 4 types of limitless power. Previously, when Xiao Meng executed the first one, it had already stunned everyone. Then, when Chu Hen executed the second one, it made those doubters speechless. Now, the third one had appeared. Everyone finally understood what it meant to be shocked. 3 of the 4 types of limitless power had appeared. At this moment, everyone's eyes were filled with dense fear. Just who was Chu Hen? How could a mere new disciple have such ability? Without any chance to be shocked, the surging grayish light swept towards Pei Yi like ripples on the surface of water. Buzz! The incomparably overbearing great desolation power swept over and landed on Pei Ye's body. Pei Ye's body violently trembled. The powerful bloodline power that erupted from his body seemed to have been forcefully extracted. it was swiftly corroded and crushed. What? Pei's face drastically changed. He felt as if the power in his body had been invaded by the great desolation power. He was like a tree that had lost its vitality, becoming weak and decayed like a chain reaction. The black Qilin, which was covered in a blazing aura, emitted a violent and uneasy tremble. Oh! Before Pei could come up with any countermeasures, a lightning dragon that was covered in dazzling arcs of lightning suddenly charged out of the blazing heavenly flames and charged down furiously with a might to destroy the heavens. Boom! An incomparably heavy explosion exploded in the sky as a terrifying shock wave swept across the 9 heavens. The unstoppable lightning dragon had directly torn apart the ferocious Qilin. Thereafter, it swooped down, setting off a torrential aura wave as it pounced towards Pei like a landslide, like the sky was splitting apart. The dazzling dark blue lightning dragon shook the world. Pei's pupils rapidly shrank to the size of a needle tip. Panic that had never appeared before quietly appeared on his face. The luxurious and gorgeous lightning illuminated everyone's face. Clang! In the next instant, a flower of lightning that shot through the heavens, and the earth swept through the entire coiling sky combat arena. Countless peerlessly violent and robust tribulation lightning tore the heavens and the earth apart, and they seemed like a myriad of flowing dragons and pythons. The densely packed electric arcs were like a huge blue spider web. The soaring firmament battle platform, which was already riddled with holes, once again shattered into pieces. Countless large and small rocks flew across the sky, exploding in all directions. At this moment, everyone's pupils were trembling. His heart almost jumped out his chest. Under the violent interweaving of thunder and lightning, a figure with a gradually weakening aura could be faintly seen. Everyone clenched their fists and their eyes darkened. Pei's body was covered in wounds, and his clothes were torn. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and an illusory Qilin beast silhouette enveloped his body like a veil. He blocked it. The hearts of the West Dome Peak Academy's disciples lit up. But in the next instant, 2 dazzling electric arcs suddenly appeared in the air, and a peerlessly fierce figure flashed in front of Pei like a ghost. Pei's constricted pupils reflected a handsome face that was filled with playfulness. Without any chance to meet the attack, an arm flickering with gorgeous lightning directly broke through the Qilin beast silhouette's defensive layer. Pei's expression changed dramatically. He wanted to retreat, but in the next instant, he felt his throat tighten. An ice-cold, iron-like palm directly strangled his neck. Hua! An invisible majestic aura spread out in all directions. Bang! With a cracking sound, the Qilin beast silhouette that enveloped Pei's body directly shattered into countless fragments. The entire world seemed to have fallen into a state of stillness. All the West Dome Peak Academy and Pei's supporters were deathly pale, and their hearts all sank to the bottom of a boundless abyss. Peak Master Sidhu Song's eyes were filled with thick disbelief. The smile that was still there a moment ago instantly disappeared completely. The entire audience was deathly silent. Qiu Xingyi, Wang Li, Qi Qianying, and the others all stared at the broken battle platform in front of them. Wu Mian, Zhao Qingyi, and the others were in a trance, as if they were in a different world. A scene that no one could have imagined happened. The scene that they were most worried about appeared. The chief disciple of the West Dome Peak Academy, the newly promoted second on the Heaven Marshal list, was unstoppable all the way, aiming for the champion's throne. But when he was just one step away from the champion's throne, he was blocked by a newcomer who had entered for less than 2 years, Beichin Peak Academy. The Peak Academy that had been at the bottom for many years. At this moment, a new disciple of this Peak Academy directly grabbed Pei's throat. Chi. The lightning that lingered around Chu Hen's arm was particularly dazzling. His palm and arm exerted force, and Pei's feet slowly left the ground. Ha! This is the so-called chief disciple of the West Dome Peak Academy. He's simply a cripple that can't withstand a single blow. Can't withstand a single blow. Cripple. This scene was very familiar. The same scene, the same words. The expressions of the audience changed again and again. Just the day before yesterday, Pei Yi also used this method to humiliate the #1 person of the Beichun Peak Academy, Wu Yin, to the extreme. The scene of that day reappeared. But the difference was that the one who was humiliated this time was Pei Yi and the entire West Dome Peak Academy. Those who kill will always be killed. Those who humiliate will always be humiliated. Everyone from the Beichun Peak Academy couldn't help but clench their fists, their eyes surging with uncontrollable excitement. Especially Wu Yin, his body was trembling uneasily. Even though he was a 7-foot-tall man, his eyes couldn't help but slightly redden at this moment. Chu Hen was collecting debts on his behalf, collecting all the humiliation he suffered that day here, collecting all the dignity that the Beichun Peak Academy lost that day. This time, the Beichun Peak Academy finally dared to raise their heads in an upright manner. Peak Master Yuan Shang, Court Master Luo Tsang, and the many elders of the Beichun Peak Academy couldn't help but tightly clench their teeth. Over the years, the Beichun Peak Academy had endured so much humiliation, suffered so much mockery, and heard so much ridicule. At this moment, it was as if they wanted all of it back. In comparison, everyone from the West Dome Academy felt a deep sense of defeat. Looking at Pei Yi, who was held in Chu Hen's hand and unable to move, everyone felt powerless in their hearts. Peak Master Situ Song's expression became increasingly gloomy. If looks could kill, then Chu Hen would have already been torn to pieces at this moment. Bang! Chu Hen loosened his grip, and Pei Yi fell heavily to the ground. Then, he raised his leg and directly kicked Pei Yi's chest. Along with a spurt of blood, Pei Yi flew out like a sandbag. Just like Wu Yin that day, he fiercely slammed into the spectator stands on the west side. The ferocious impact directly smashed large pieces of bricks into smithereens. The surrounding people were all forced back by the biting cold wave of air. Anger, unwillingness. Pei Yi fell to the ground, traces of blood flowing from his mouth and nose. His internal organs were trembling, and his aura was weak like a dog that was about to die. However, Chu Hen didn't even look at him. He indifferently turned around and walked towards the spectator stand on the south side. Long Xuan, Yi Yao, Wu Mian, and the others began to welcome his return. Everyone couldn't help but reveal looks of admiration in their eyes. And for Pei Yi, at this moment, all the gazes directed at him from all directions were filled with great mockery. Looking at the figure that was the focus of attention, the unwillingness and anger in Pei Yi's eyes multiplied. The hatred and killing intent in his eyes that had lost all rationality erupted uncontrollably. Pei Yi slammed his palm on the ground and suddenly soared into the air. Then he set off a fierce aura and flew towards the high firmament battle platform. His eyes were blood red, and he looked like a ferocious beast that had gone mad. "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to tear you into pieces." Everyone was shocked. It was already too late to stop him. Pei Yi, who'd set off a majestic attack, immediately arrived behind Chu Hen. However, in the next instant, Chu Hen turned around and kicked. Bang! A circle of true Yuan energy spread out. Pei Yi's chest, who had encountered the force of 1,000 caddies, immediately caved in. His entire person was sent flying high into the sky buzz. Subsequently, Chu Hen's palms faced each other, and a powerful true origin energy immediately condensed into a dazzling lightning sword light. "You dare?" Sidu Song, the West Sky Peak Master, was shocked and shouted in a stern voice. Swish! As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Hen pushed his palms outwards, and the lightning sword shadow dragged out a condensed wave of air in the sky. It was like a meteor chasing after the moon as it pursued Pei Yi, who was high up in the sky. "How dare you?" Sidu Song was furious. He'd already been suppressing a bellyful of anger, and seeing that Chu Hen was going to kill him, he couldn't stand it anymore. He stepped into the air and raised his palm. The vast and surging palm energy caused the heavens and earth to tremble. Bang! With an explosive sound, The lightning sword light exploded into a cyclone less than 10 meters away from Pei Yi. However, at this moment, a demonic purple light rose from within Chu Hen's body. There was a trace of coldness in the depths of his deep eyes, and 6 black dots quietly appeared. Buzz! In the air, a spiral of purple cyclones condensed like small whirlwinds, and then a strange light shield quietly appeared between heaven and earth. Punishment shield? Long Xuan Xuang and Yi Yao, who were below the stage, were shocked. That light shield was indeed a powerful defensive power that Chu Hen had used before. But in the next moment, the light shield was like a shadow blade that pierced through heaven and earth, slashing towards Pei Yi with a piercingly cold momentum. Purple light shone brilliantly, and the evil eye pattern on the light shield was mysterious and unfathomable. You still dare to attack? Sidu Song, who was already stepping through the air, was both shocked and furious. An even more ferocious palm energy poured out. Scram, bang. The violent impact arrived, and everyone thought that it would explode and shatter like the lightning sword light. However, something that no one expected happened. When Sidu Song's palm landed, it actually only caused the light shield's solidification to sharply decrease, but it didn't shatter. What? Everyone was shocked. Pei Yi was also shocked. His pupils shrank as he stared at the purple shadow blade that was rapidly approaching him. Hiss! A rain of fresh blood danced in the sky. Under countless gazes that were filled with endless fear, the purple shadow blade formed by the punishment shield was like a divine light that could cut the heavens as it directly passed through Pei Ye's lower body. In an instant, 2 broken legs directly separated from Pei Ye's body and immediately flew out.